Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pipeline Podcast, episode 80. Connor, how are you today? Co-host, how's it going, buddy?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing? Nice podcast last week, by the way.
I know you left us leaving and
didn't
left
even
on
invite
red.
me.
It was crazy. You just left us. It was crazy. But Connor, we have a very special guest today. We have the one, the only, the fabulous, the amazing Chatterbox Reviews. How's it going, buddy?
Pretty good. Good to be here with you guys.
Thank you so much. This, we were talking about it prior, but this is something we've been trying to schedule out and do back in 2018, back when we were mere children, just doing whatever on the internet, just kind of going away and doing all this fun stuff. But you're very much into TV stuff, right?
Yeah, mainly. I watch some movies here and there. Used to review a lot more movies actually, but yeah, mainly just TV shows now.
Which TV's better anyway.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I mean, we both love TV. Connor, you're a massive TV bug. I feel like that's one of your main hobbies as well. And we're doing a big TV episode this week. And I was like, let me reach out to him and see if he wants to come on here and talk about some of the best modern TV shows, which I thought would be a fun way to kind of end off the month. But we kind of like to intro these episodes by just kind of talking about some of our favorite things from the week. Was there any movies or shows or just games or anything that you played throughout the last week or last month or so that you would like to shout out?
I mean, well, I just did my review for Masters of the Air. It was the Apple TV Plus miniseries, and yeah, I really liked it. I mean, it wasn't. I'd say it came in a little bit below my expectations, probably, but it was still really great. And so I was behind on the last 2 or 3 episodes, so I watched them all in one night, and then did the review for that. So that was cool. That's about it. I watched a little bit of your stream, and I noticed, Connor, you were talking about The Ones Who Live. Yeah, and I've been watching that as well. So cool, and really liking that. So
yeah.
Ones Who Live has been good so far.
Yeah. I'm very excited because I've been going through the OG show for the first time, and me and Connor have been talking about that on here, and I'm in season 7 currently, which I feel is my first what I hear people say is the first bad season, or the first season people seem to not like as much, that season has definitely been an experience. If it's as good as the previous ones or not, it's definitely this is an interesting season of television just to see kind of the transition in just the media, because that show was such a massive, just my whole life I heard just even prior to me watching that show, I heard everyone talking about The Walking Dead and your experience. Right. I mean, that's one of your favorite shows, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. I watched it live. I can't remember when I caught up with it live. I think season 5 or something like that. So I was watching it live for many years, and then I think I did reviews for season 7 till 10, something like that on my channel. So it was a big part of my life for that time.
Sure.
For sure.
Yeah, and I feel just the current hype of it, it's been all these years, and there's still stuff that they're putting out. They're still doing spinoffs and stuff like that. So it's just me now being I want to be able to get caught up for this, and I want to be able to talk about it now, even if a lot of people have fallen off the show, or even if it isn't as popular as a lot of people have said, or as it used to be, I should say. Connor, was there anything from this last week that you would like to talk about?
Well, just about your Walking Dead thing real quick. I think honestly, you're making a good choice, because binging it now that it's all over, you're missing a lot of the frustration that a lot of people had watching live, with season 7 and 8, where it felt like the same thing was happening weeks in a row. You're missing all of that, and you're getting to just kind of watch it all together, and which that's a good thing.
Yeah. Just us talking, there's many things that you're saying, I don't like this thing, and I feel I don't have that just because there isn't the fandom around it, or there isn't these breaks. There's the end of season 6, I was I love this ending, and you're I didn't, and it was oh, okay, that's interesting, and tell me why. And now that I get to see it from that point of view, it was I get it now. I get, as someone from the comics, someone that was really into it at that time, why that would be frustrating. I can understand some of the hatred. But I am glad I'm binging it. I am glad. Like, even though I do kind of wish I didn't, like, it would have been fun to talk about it live. I think I would have a greater, like, appreciation for the stuff. Like, as much as I'm enjoying it, I don't think this could ever become one of my favorite shows, just because, like, I'm not have that experience watching it week to week as some of, like, other people did. But yeah, I'm curious to go through the rest of it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an experience. I think it does pick up pretty heavily again, kind of after a certain arc is over. I think like the show sort of reinvents itself for the better. But in terms of what I watched, The Ones Who Live, still caught up on that. Episode 5 did a few things I wasn't crazy about, but in general, I still think it's like it's a really good show. Like it's definitely sort of matching up with some of the better seasons of The Walking Dead, I'd say. Masters of the Air as well. I was really into that. I thought it was like, I think how they handled sort of the difference between what the air bombers were going through and then what like Easy Company was going through in Band of Brothers and what the Marines are going through in the Pacific was really cool. Like there's a very clear difference in the different theaters of war, which I really liked about that. What else I watched? I've been catching up on a lot of shows. So other Apple stuff I was watching. I started watching Manhunt, the John Wilkes Booth TV show with the guy who plays Crosby in Masters of the Air is the main guy in that, which that's been really good so far. Then Apple's other sci-fi show, Constellation, which is like set on the International Space Station. I'm watching that.
I'm watching that too. Yeah.
What do you think of it?
I'm only on like episode 4, I think now.
Yeah.
I really liked. There were a few moments in those first few episodes where I was like, I had to pause it, and I'm like, whoa, like what is going on here?
Yeah.
So I like that. I mean, I like shows that kind of like, kind of make you like step back. You're like, wow, this is. So yeah, I think it's a good thriller. I mean, there's parts of it that I wasn't that I'm not a huge fan of, but I think I'm gonna watch the rest of it.
Sure, yeah. I think it's definitely like it's a unique show. Like it's very sort of messes with what you think is happening a lot. I think Jonathan Banks is great in it. I think his character is really cool. Other than that, I started the New Look, the World War II Amazon show. I don't know with Ben Mendelsohn. I don't know how I feel about it yet. That's kind of it. I caught up on Abbott Elementary and Bad Batch as well. That's kind of it.
Those are some good shows.
Okay.
I watch, just kind of getting into a couple of things I watched. I think like Monarch I had started over the last week because that had come out recently. I know the newest movie's coming out. Actually, it's out today. I think it's coming out today. I think it's Godzilla X Kong. I think comes out today. So kind of getting caught up with like the MonsterVerse and some of those shows. I'll talk about that on my other show, and I think that's been okay so far. I think it's been all right. But honestly, I think my favorite thing recently is X-Men. I think the new X-Men show has been just one of my favorite things I've seen in a while. Like having binged up until this point, the OG show and then getting to get caught up. I think it's been one of my favorite. It's hard to say. Like I feel like I say this every other like Marvel project, where like this is my favorite Marvel project since blank, but also like. I think it might be my favorite Marvel project since blank. Like I loved Loki last year. I loved Guardians last year, but like this just has that vibe and that feel. Like it feels like the most comic book thing I've seen in a while. And I love that it's just like, it feels like the most Marvel show we've had in a while. Like again, like Loki felt like a TV show, but like this feels like an actual like TV show. Like it feels like they made a show. So I am loving that so far. I do want to read some of these chats prior to kind of jumping into our next thing. Daniel said, never got into The Walking Dead, tried multiple times, but never got through the first episode. That's crazy.
It's long, so I get it.
It is very long. Like you kind of have to like commit into something big. Even if you just watch the main show, that's what, 170 episodes of TV. Like that's a lot of TV.
Yeah.
Got another comment here. Any of y'all excited for The Boys Season 4? I am interested in Gen V Season 2 than The Boys Season 4. Chatterbox, are you a Boys fan at all? Are you a fan of that world?
I've been told so many times by so many people to watch that. I think I watched the first episode. I think in 2020 sometime. Is that that's when it came out, or around when it came out?
Right, yeah, I think it was summer of 2020, I think.
Yeah, I think it was June 2019 or July 2019.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a little after it came out, and I watched the first episode, and I don't know, I just kind of didn't get back to it, but
sure.
I do want to watch it. I mean, there's so many like memes and stuff that I see of Homelander. Is that him, the blonde guy? So yeah, I want to get into that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of The Boys. I will be, and this might be a hot take. I kind of agree with you. I think I'm more excited for Gen V season 2 than The Boys season 4, which was a shock to me because like leading up to like The Boys coming or Gen V coming out, I was like, I don't know, this kind of seems like a lesser version of The Boys, and it came out, and I think it just exceeded my expectations. And just the fact that I think these characters are a bit more likable than the Boys crowd. Not to say they're better, but like the whole thing about The Boys is that they're all like terrible human beings, and that like they're bad people, and you shouldn't be rooting for them. So I do think Gen V was kind of this like breath of fresh air, being like, oh yeah, these guys are just fun to watch. Like I can like support most of their actions. Connor, are you excited for both of these seasons?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a little critical of The Boys just because I didn't love how season 3 handled things, but I mean, yeah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited for season 4. Like, it's still one of the best shows coming out, I think, and I'm excited for it more than Gen V just because, you know, Carl Urban, Anthony Starr, like Jack Quaid, them, I think, like those characters and Starlight as well are so exciting, and I still like all of them a little bit more than anybody from Gen V, but Gen V was still good as well.
That's fair. Actually, speaking of Jack Quaid, this is actually a good transition. Connor, there's been some weird Star Trek news, right?
Yeah,
over
this last week.
Would you like to just kind of go over all this like Star Trek thing, because like you said,
sure,
there's like, a lot of big stuff to come out over this last week.
Well, like the first thing that kind of happened last weekend was that Star Trek Prodigy season 2 just randomly released in France on France TV, which kind of came out of nowhere because Paramount cancelled Prodigy last year, and then Netflix picked it up for season 2, and then we're like, okay, we're going to release season 2 sometime next year because season 2 was already practically complete. But like Netflix hasn't promoted or marketed it at all, so everybody was kind of assuming season 2 was going to come out either summer or later on this year, and whenever they start doing trailers, posters, all that sort of stuff. But then randomly last weekend, the whole season, like all 20 episodes, just dropped on France's national broadcaster, like without English subtitles, without the English audio, just the French audio, just the French subtitles. And then everybody was like, this is really weird. Like, what is going on here? And so then Trek Central started posting about it. And then everybody started like jumping on Trek Central saying, take this down. This is a leak. Like, don't promote leak. Don't promote spoilers, sort of thing. But then like it came out there over the last few days that it wasn't a leak at all, that Paramount just didn't read the contracts properly. So when they canceled the show, France got to release season 2 whenever they wanted. Like, they didn't have to stick to any contracts or release dates anymore. And March 18th was the end of their current contract, so they dropped it as soon as the contract ended. So like the whole season is now officially out in France, and nobody can do anything about it. Like, it hasn't been marketed, hasn't been promoted at all. There's no English language release date on site. Like, it's just out over there now, and it's such a weird sort of situation. I can't think of a time where I've seen this happen with any TV show before, where like a major studio or company has really messed up in the contracts as much that a show just releases in another country and there's nothing anybody can do about it. But it's other than that though, there was like a giant Variety article that came out yesterday kind of talking about a little bit about the history of the franchise and also kind of promoting the future of the franchise and what's sort of happening over the next few years. They've confirmed that we've got like 5 films in development now, in some form of development. We've got Section 31 coming out later this year, which that's the Michelle Yeoh film, and we got some news about that's going to actually be set pretty close to Next Generation, because one of the characters who's going to be in it is the captain of the Enterprise C, who sort of shows up between the original stuff and the Next Generation stuff in the Lost Era, which we've never seen in a film or TV show before. So that's going to be really cool. Then we've got the 4th film from the reboot franchise, which that'll be out at some point. We've got the prequel film. Then they're saying that they're looking into doing some other Paramount Plus films, and like a follow-up to Star Trek Picard might be one of those things. And besides that, we got a release date for Stranger World Season 3, so that's going to be coming out in 2025. We got an update on the Starfleet Academy show, which they're saying is kind of more sort of young adult focused. So like, honestly, like Gen V might be a good comparison to that, just with a lot of the sort of the more crazy elements of Gen V toned down. So that's going to be really cool. So that's filming this summer, and they're saying that's the biggest Trek set ever built. So that'll probably be out either next year or 2026. But yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff kind of coming on the horizon. And normally with this sort of stuff, I'm pretty skeptical of these things actually coming out. Like with Star Wars, every time they announce a film at this point, I kind of just like, is it coming out? Is it not? But with Star Trek, considering they already have one coming out this year, I feel like it's a pretty safe bet we're going to see a lot of these films, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of just stuff like come out over the last week, like news that I was like, I thought we had talked about this news like 3 months ago, and
yeah,
we're just
I know I
getting
discussed
to it now. Yeah, it's like, is this another one, or is this the same one that we had just talked about?
Yeah, that was the same one, and like the article was so long, and there were so many cool bits of news and information that we had no idea about before. And Discussing Film picks the one thing from it that had already been announced like months ago, and tweeted about that, and I was like, all right, well, okay.
Chatter, are you a fan of like the Star Trek world, or are you not seen any of it?
Really, I think I've seen the Wrath of Khan, like
Wrath of Khan, yeah.
I think that's considered like the best one, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen that, but that's about the extent.
That is more than I've seen. I've seen nothing. I think I've seen one episode of something when I was little, and that's it. Yeah. That's all I've seen. But it's always Connor, I'm always very interested to hear you talk about it, because the world seems so fascinating. It seems like a really fun franchise to hop into. Big. It's just, it's so scary. Like looking at it from the outside, it's like there's this one and this one and this one, and this is like I don't know what to do.
I mean, Variety touched on that in the article where they were like, they had this giant stats thing of how many watch hours are in the Star Trek franchise in comparison to everything else, and it's like the Star Trek franchise was, I think, 10 times as big as the current MCU in terms of watch hours, and that's including all the TV shows and everything. So like, it's a lot. It's a big commitment.
That is a very big commitment. I mean, just kind of like speaking of the MCU, there's been a lot of like, not controversy, but like internet backlash over the last week. Sebastian Stan, which isn't something we've known for a while, but I feel like the internet is just now like being like, oh, this is a thing. Bucky will not be present for Captain America 4, and the internet's mad. I've seen a lot of people like from this news being like, Captain America 4 is over. It's the worst MCU movie now. No one cares about now that Bucky's not in it. Connor, you're a big like Bucky guy, right? You're a fan of that character. Are you okay with Bucky not being in this movie?
I mean, I think it's clear they're trying to differentiate Brave New World from the original Captain America trilogy and from Falcon and Winter Soldier a little bit. So I think it's not a surprise, but I would like to see Bucky in it. But it's also like they are trying to make Sam Wilson stand on his own and showcase Sam Wilson in his own world with his own set of characters. Because while Bucky's a very important character, he was very tied to Steve, and they want to set Sam up as his own as his own hero, his own character, which I completely understand that. Like they want this to be its own thing. But I don't know. I think like I'd more so just be worried because of the other things to do with the film, like the non-stop sort of production issues and the script issues and the reshoots and the rewrites, and Mark Ruffalo being like, I'm in Brave New World, and then like, no, wait, no, I'm not in Brave New World. Like there was that for a bit. And
that was weird.
That as well. So I don't know. We'll see. But like, I would like to see Bucky again, but I understand why he's not in it.
Yeah, no, fully, and like, it's very weird because like I've seen people being like, they're treating Bucky so bad in the MCU, and it was like, he's had 7 movies, he was a co-lead in a show, and he's going to be in an upcoming Marvel movie. Like, he's fine. He is the character that I feel like he's getting more than probably most MCU characters.
Absolutely.
He's got a lot. I mean, the Captain America trilogy was basically about him. Those were for sure. Like Steve is like the elite of those films, but those were like, they surrounded Bucky and his story. Like, it's insane how much he's had, and that led into like Avengers. Like the Avengers split up because of like he's had this massive role in the MCU. He's fine, so he's fine. And like I would agree too. Like I'm very nervous for Captain America 4. Like that's like I'm very excited because I love Sam, and it's been 3 years since the show had come out, and we still have not seen him as Captain America. That's worrying. I feel like there was a lot of hype when that show first ended. Like, okay, Captain America's here. I mean, it's been 5-6 years since Cap gave him the shield, right? So you would have thought by this point we would have had him as Captain America. We haven't yet. That's concerning. But I'm not mad Bucky's not in the movie.
I think Bucky, like you said, I mean, he's had more screen time than 99.9% of the characters in this franchise. Like, I think the only people to tie him in screen time is probably like Loki, and if we're talking kind of main MCU stuff.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see the like list of screen time actors, because I think Loki is like number 2. I think, what is it?
Oh yeah.
Is Samuel Jackson up there? Like, he's been up there a lot.
Nick Fury's in a lot, but I don't think he's never really kind of a main central character in anything.
I think Robert's still number 1. I'm pretty sure Robert still has the most screen time, but I think
even counting like shows.
I think so. Okay. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not, because like Loki like shot up to like the very top once he got 2 seasons of his own show. Like that was kind of insane. Yeah. Chat Adderbox, are you a fan of like the MCU at all, or like are you part of like any of this? No,
not really. I mean, I keep up with like some of the news because I follow some channels and stuff that talk about it. But I kind of just like checked out. I can't remember when. Unfortunately, it was before I think Endgame.
Oh
wow. But, yeah, kind of wish I did make it to there, but yeah, I don't know. I do like to keep up with it though. Like some people have been, like I know the movies haven't been received as well, right? Like No Way Home was pretty big, but then like some of the other ones haven't. The Marvels lately wasn't very good, or at least I don't know, but I'm just from the perception of it. So, yeah, interesting. So does this movie, the 4th one, is this picking up from the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show or? Oh, okay. Because I know about that.
Yeah, because Sam has the shield, and the TV show was about him like picking up that mantle, and then this one was supposed to be about him being the mantle, but it's been a while since we kind of left that. So I don't know. I'll be very curious. We have another kind of Marvel thing I do want to talk about as well. Of course, X-Men have come out this week. Connor, you haven't seen it yet, right? You have not.
No, I still want to finish the original animated series before I admit to the new one.
Which I think is a very good idea. But a big topic of a conversation, a lot of rumors going around it. Like, obviously, this show is being very well. Like, it had 100% on your like Rotten. So like people have really it's been doing very well. People are really into it, and there's been a lot of talks recently on if you should expand the 90s Spider-Man or X-Men and Spider-Man universe. Obviously, we had the 90s Spider-Man show, this new X-Men show, and then this new one as well. And there's been a lot of rumors going around that maybe they would want to expand upon that. Maybe bring back a Spider-Man, bring back some of these other shows that are set in this universe. Connor, would this be something that you would enjoy? Obviously, we've talked a good amount, like what's the future of Disney Plus? What are they doing with their like TV shows? The MCU shows haven't been doing as well, or hasn't been like received as well. Is this something that you would like to see, or do you think this would be like a good idea?
I mean, selfishly, the reason why I want to see this is because I think the more Marvel TV shows that we get that are successors to old Marvel TV shows is the better chance we have for other shows coming back. Like I said this in my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. video made the other day, that like X-Men 97, how that performs is very much indicative of if we're going to see more Marvel animated shows that are successors to the other shows. And I think, the more of those we get, the more likely it is we see successor shows to as many of the other Marvel shows as we can get. So I would like to see it for sure. Like the Marvel animation in general, I'm so sort of hit and miss with what I've seen and what I haven't. Like DC animation, I've seen pretty much everything. Like Superman the animated series, like the biggest DC animated thing that I haven't seen a lot of. But like in terms of DC animation, I've seen most of everything. Whereas with Marvel, there's just so many the Spider-Man animated shows I just haven't seen. I've seen bits of them. Seen most of X-Men the animated series. I've seen bits of Wolverine and the X-Men. I saw some of Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, some of Guardians of the Galaxy. But like, I need to kind of go through all of them and watch them all, because I don't think any of them I've actually finished. I think I've just seen most of all of them, or seen some of all of them.
Childhood shows are very weird because I feel like there's so little that you watch like every episode of. It's like, oh, you caught some episodes. Oh, you've seen this here and there. And it's like,
exactly.
Like X-Men, I watched a lot when I was a kid because I loved, that was like my first like intro to like superhero stuff. But like looking back on it, I was like, I actually watched very little episodes of the show. I just saw a couple episodes and it stuck with me as a kid. So it's always very weird. Chatter, are you a fan? Like, did you grow up on any of these shows growing up? Is this something that you'd like to see?
Well, I think that's kind of funny what you said. Like, I only realized that like when I was maybe like I don't know, 15 or 16, I was like, there's seasons of TV shows, like, you know, because you would just like turn the TV on and be like, you know, you just watch the show, or like you watch like reruns of it. And I didn't even like realize I was watching the same episode I'd already watched sometimes, probably.
For sure.
But yeah, no, I haven't watched many of this stuff. I've heard of X-Men 97. Like I've heard the really good buzz for it.
Right.
So that's good. I wonder, like, because I know they did some animation in the What If show, right, for Disney Plus. Is that the only animation that they've done
so far? Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the second one, but they've now launched a whole part of Marvel that is going to be this. So we have an upcoming Spider-Man show, we have a Black Panther show, we have like What If Season 3 coming out. We have a bunch of these kind of shows that they're heading out.
Well, Marvel Animation Studio.
Yeah, and it seems like this is going to be a big kind of sector of the new, you know, at least Disney Plus. Like I don't know what they're doing in the main MCU, but it seems like that's a big part of what they're doing kind of over there now, which I'm actually super down for. Like there's a lot of talk when it comes to Disney Plus and like their shows. I'll be honest, I think as a whole, they haven't put out a lot of great stuff since their launch. Like there's been good, Andor was good, Mando was good, Loki was, like there's been good stuff. Like there has, but I think as a whole, it's been kind of hit or miss, especially when it comes to Marvel over there. So like, I'd be fine if we just did like animated shows. Like if we that was really the focus that we went with. And then I think like the over like saturation argument would go down a bit, because then not everything is the MCU, and the stuff that is the MCU won't be looked at as much, because like, oh, that's an animated show, which is a bigger like argument on how people view like that medium and that medium of art. But it's still a thing that people was like, oh, it's like whatever. So I would be curious if they did go down this ride. Like again, Connor, we've talked about like Earth's Mightiest Heroes. I would love if that could come back for another season. That would be so cool.
That'd be really cool.
So many of these shows that were canceled too early, like Wolverine and the X-Men. Would it come back after this one? Probably not, but I'd love that. Like there's so many outwards that they could go with this that I would be open to. And it even kind of like reminded me of the Arrowverse a little bit, Connor, where like, okay, you can have the main like Marvel universe that they have in the movies, and then over in TV you can have like the 90s universe, and we just go through all of these shows and over in that corner, which I think could be kind of fun.
I think it's just smart as well, because like if everything is tied to the MCU, then it really does limit this kind of stories you can tell. Like if you need everything to be tied to this one specific timeline or this one specific franchise, it just sort of, it makes your stories less interesting, because you always have to be thinking, how does this tie into what just happened or what's going to happen? Whereas like if you're bringing in a lot of animated shows that were never tied to the MCU, you can tell a lot of stories that you'd be limited with otherwise.
Sure.
Yeah, and I've heard that too. Like I have a few friends. The one friend was like, I think he kind of stopped watching at Endgame, and then now recently he's been watching like all of the shows and everything, and he's just like, it's just so exhausting, right? To like get back into it and try to. And he's like, oh, there's a new movie, I got to finish this show before then. So, and I've heard a lot of the discourse on that. It's like maybe it might be best to like just have projects that are kind of one-offs or things like that, where people can kind of jump in. Like even like me, if I want to jump in on a show, I wouldn't have to know the kind of the backstory in that, but it is also cool. Like look at Endgame, like what they're able to do, right, with everything connected. So I don't know. It's a kind of a trade-off between the two, but
sure.
No, absolutely.
100%. And it's very hard. Like I'm a fan of this stuff. I like watching it, but like looking from the outside for someone who doesn't, who it is for like people to have like real jobs, like, you know, real like 9 to 5. It is hard for people to keep up with everything, and I understand that. Like it's you have a new show every 2 months, a new movie every couple of months. I understand people falling off, and I was like, trust me, I understand, and I do think that I actively do think they are trying to like reel back with what they're doing. But like me and Connor talked about on here a lot, they have like 30 plus projects that's already been made that they just have to put out, and it's like they have to get that out first, and then they can take a break, and it's just like this endless cycle. So I don't know. But again, I'd be curious if they kind of went down this path. All right, one more kind of superhero thing to talk about, and then we can move along to actually TV stuff. Connor, Superman Lois had a pretty big.
Oh, yeah, we got Jimmy Olsen.
Mr. Jimmy Olsen himself.
Superman's best pal.
Douglas Smith has joined the cast for the final season of Superman and Lois. This was insane. I'll be honest. This was on my wish list for the final season. I really wanted Jimmy Olsen. I did not think we were getting it. I truly thought it was a final season. They're cutting the cast. They're cutting the budgets. Final season. There's no way it's happening, and it happened. What's your kind of thoughts on us finally getting this?
I mean, it's weird because they only mentioned him once, I think, in the entire show, didn't they? They mentioned him in season 1, episode 11, when Lois and Clark are in the Daily Planet flashback, and then somebody's like, Jimmy took this picture or something like that. But yeah, no, I think like he's probably the biggest Superman mythos character who has not been in the show. Like, I think like we haven't seen sort of. We haven't seen. I mean, Jimmy Olsen in general, he's not used enough in these shows, and like Injustice Superman stuff in general. Like Batman v Superman, kind of just brought him in, didn't even tell people it was him, and then got rid of him straight away. It's like even in Smallville, we didn't get him a crazy amount. Like we got him in season 6 briefly, we got him in season 7 briefly, we got him in like at the very end of season 10. Like, it's good to kind of see him in Superman Lois, but I also think it's a case of he's not going to be in much of it. I think we're probably going to get him in the flashback episode, and I think that'll be it.
Yeah, it is very strange just how many people I feel like don't know Jimmy Olsen just as a character. Like my mom, who like tries to keep up with a lot of these superhero stuff, and I was like, he's coming to see, and she's like, who is Jimmy Olsen? I was like, oh, I guess you wouldn't know. I mean, James Olsen, that guy is like, oh, okay, but like the Arrowverse didn't do much with him. Again, the DCU didn't do much with it. Like there just hasn't been a lot, and I do actually think it's kind of cool how far we've come. But now the 3 current Superman projects all have Jimmy Olsen currently. The animated show, the movies, and this show will now have Jimmy Olsen. And I'm very excited for getting a Backlash episode again in this final season, because that's my favorite. Like those are some of my favorite ones in each season. Like the season 1 episode, the flashback in season 1. It's one of the coolest episodes.
It's my favorite episode of the show, like easily.
It's so good, and they understand the like mythos of Superman so well. So getting to kind of get to see his roots, and there's a lot of people who were like, that's kind of where I wanted the show to take place. I wanted the show to take place in this timeline, and I was like, I get it, because it's a really fun timeline to explore. And I think it's gonna be really fun now that we have Lex Luthor inside the mix, having Jimmy, Lex, Lois, and Clark in the backflashes. I think could be really, really cool. I know this is a different version of Lex, so like it's gonna be interesting to see him in the backflashes, because back then he wasn't a Superman villain. Like he's like, this version of Lex really isn't a Superman villain yet. They haven't really fought too much. It's more about Lois Lane versus Lex. But I'll be very curious to kind of see where we take that.
I mean, do you think we're going to see Lex in the flashback?
I would think so.
I have a funny feeling it's going to be very similar to the season 1 flashback, where it's a lot of sort of. It's a separate story. Like it's probably just going to be building up Clark and Lois more, and like focusing on their life in the Daily Planet. Like, because the season 1 flashback, it wasn't anything to do with the main story at the time. It was just kind of showing us backstory for Clark and Lois. And I think considering this is the penultimate episode, as a flashback episode, I think it'll probably be very similar. Yeah, it's the 9th episode, so I think it's probably going to be like building up their relationship. Yeah, they're almost done filming. They're done filming in like 2 or 3 weeks.
That's a weird choice. That's a really weird, because that's all they were just doing, filming for 7. So I thought they had so like maybe they're doing it backwards a little bit, like doing the ending first. Because I was like, oh, they're only on 7. That's okay. But yeah, you're right. That's weird to have your second to last episode be a flashback. That's kind of a weird. Like I was expecting like episode 5 or episode 6 or something.
Sure, yeah.
I wonder if Jimmy's also in the final episode. I could see him coming in present day in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, you set him up in a flashback and you bring him back in the final. I could see that.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't know. It's crazy. It's weird because again, we haven't had much like DC news, not
TV news. Yeah,
it's been a while. It's all like negativity and like this thing's canceled and this thing's going this way, and it's like, oh, a casting. It was like, oh my gosh, there's something to talk about. This felt like. Great. I know. It was so weird. Are you a fan of the show at all? Have you checked it out at all?
No, I haven't. But I heard great things about season 1, right?
Yeah, season 1 was really good.
Yeah.
Season
1 is great. Season 2 kind of dipped off a bit, but I thought season 3 jumped right back up there. Like I was like, oh yeah, it's back. It's great.
Okay. Yeah, and I heard Lex Luthor's played by Abraham, right?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Walking Dead. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I knew that, but yeah.
And then in season 3, there's actually a couple like Walking Dead people, because in season 3 we also had
you have Tyrese as well.
Tyrese, yeah, they're both villains. I like at the same time.
Nice.
It's weird because like the one died and then the other one came in, or died, went to jail. Like the one went and then the other one came up. It's like, oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Wow. That's cool.
But yeah, no, it's. I'm sad it's ending. I'm sad it's the final season. Okay, and just really lastly, really quick, we don't need to spend much time on this one. Euphoria news. Oh my gosh, I feel like I've never talked about the show on the channel. Because I really just want to talk about this because I did think it just from a TV spot and you
it's interesting. Yeah,
you guys, this is a fascinating story. So the third season of Euphoria has been delayed again, and actors have been told to explore other jobs. I found this to be fascinating. Are either of you two like a big fan of the show at all, or you guys haven't seen it?
And I've seen it.
Good.
Yeah, no, you good.
Oh no, I haven't seen it, but I'm kind of up to date with this. I've followed this and like I've heard so many things about the show. It's like I don't know. It seems like, and you know what probably hurt my chances of watching the show is 13 Reasons Why. Because to me it was like, oh, this is just like another 13 Reasons Why, but like I feel like it's obviously elevated, like it's better than that. But to me, it was like when it first came out, that's what I was thinking. I've seen one of the scenes where like Zendaya is she's like knocking on like a front door or something like that, and she has this like long scene. I've seen that, and I was like, damn, like this is first of all, she's a great actress, obviously, but I was like, oh, this is a little bit more like, serious than that. So yeah.
Yeah. I can see that. I think like 13 Reasons Why thing is like it's character wise it's kind of a good comparison, I think. But I think like Euphoria takes it a lot more serious. Yeah. But I think it's like Euphoria is a very artsy sort of show where I think it's like I don't love watching it for the characters or for the stories, but I think from a directing and from a visual point of view, it's really well done.
Yeah, and I've seen that one scene as well where they do like she's like walking and then they spin the room kind of, and she's like walking on the ceiling or something like that. And that I was like, wow, that's cool. So who is it? Sam Levinson, I think. Is he direct or write or?
I think he is the main like writer of it, isn't he?
Oh, okay. Yeah, because he's done. What did he do? He did. Did he do that one movie? Because Zendaya was in that movie as well, Malcolm and Marie, I think it was called.
I think he did. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was good. It was like, again, I think it just like showcased how good an actress Zendaya is. But
I think if there's any reason to watch it, it's because of her. Because every scene that she did in that show is like mind-blowing. Like there's a reason that why she won so many things for this show, because she is amazing in it. I loved the first season. I thought the first season was incredible. I loved the two specials they did. Season 2 really lost me though. Like season 2 was just a lot. It was, and I think they had a different showrunner or something in season 2 or something where they changed up the team in season 2. You felt that you could really feel that difference. But I just thoughts on it not being able to film again and them looking for other work. Do you think this is like concerning? Do you think the show is going to be something that gets canceled? Do you think having such a big star like Zendaya has just blown up, like just Dune and Spider-Man and like she is that actress now, and do you think that they maybe like regret getting such a big person?
I definitely think that the show is not coming back. I think, or at least when it does come back, it'll maybe be kind of similar to like Sex Education, where half the cast isn't there because they're too big now, or they're whatever. Because like you got like Zendaya, you got Sydney Sweeney, you got Jacob Elordi, who was in Priscilla, I think, pretty recently. Like you've got a lot of these people who are pretty big, like Hunter Schafer. She's in the new like Hideo Kojima stuff as well. There's a lot of people who have blown up a lot that it's just going to be impossible to get them all for their schedules to align again, especially when you've let them go. Like when you're like, okay, just go explore their opportunities. We'll get you back in Earth Point. Like I don't think that's lucky, because they were supposed to film in Ireland and in England, I think a year ago or a year and a half ago. I remember it came up because in college we were always kind of looking at what were the next sort of stuff filming in Ireland, just so that we knew for like set purposes. And Euphoria was one that was kind of talked about as going to be happening pretty soon for a while, but then it just kind of disappeared, and then obviously everybody started blowing up, and it's just I think like I don't doubt that the writing and the directors and all of that sort of stuff will be able to come back and sort of make a show that is very similar to what the first 2 seasons are. I think it's the cast that you're never gonna get them all again.
Yeah, I would. Yes. Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just a quick thing was I first saw Zendaya in that Disney Channel show though, right? Like the Shake It Up.
Oh yeah,
right? With Bella Thorne. Is that who it is? Yeah. So I just think that's hilarious, like seeing her in that, and then now
like Austin Butler as well, and like Hannah Montana, and now he's sort of in everything else.
Yep. That's right.
Disney stars have blown up. I do just think it's interesting because again they've said like season 3 was always meant to be this massive time jump. They were all out of high school then. I think if they come back for season 3, I think it'd be very smart to like wrap Zendaya up and maybe have a new lead for the upcoming season. Because I don't want to say it's 100%. I would argue maybe that's one of the reasons they haven't come back to filming it. It's just her schedule is so packed and trying to work around her. But it is just a thing where like, yes, you can keep like it's a relatively really popular show. Like on Twitter and stuff, people were always talking about it. But like, I don't know if it's big enough for this long of a break. I don't know
for sure
if that many people care after all this time when it officially does come back. It's like, oh yeah, that show I watched 5 years ago. I guess I'll go check it out again. Like it's a weird thing. And again, I enjoyed the show enough. I would like it to come back, but like I don't know if it's worth it at this point. Like are we beating a dead horse at this point? I'm not sure. But we'll see.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because like obviously it's one of HBO's biggest shows now, right? Yeah, I mean, especially with like some of the shows that have ended in the last few years on HBO. So that's tough. It kind of reminds me of like Mindhunter. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, for sure. I can see that.
Right, because it's like technically it hasn't been canceled, but and then they let the cast do other things. It's like the same type of deal. So and that show doesn't seem like it's coming back like within the next decade.
Sure, it doesn't really.
Which is so unfortunate because I love that show. But
same,
yeah, so I don't. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I like that idea though, Darren, that you said like maybe just bring Zendaya back for like an episode or two at the beginning, and then have something, or just even like establish it and say like, okay, she's no longer the lead, and then have her come in like in a few episodes or something of the season.
Sure.
Because I feel like you got to bring her in, right, for the fans of the show somehow. But maybe she doesn't have the time to shoot like a whole season, right? So
yeah, I can't believe how much she's blown up. Like I love that because I do think she's just one of the greatest actresses now. Like she's killing it. She's doing some great stuff. Kind of reminds me of like the Grey's Anatomy effect. I don't watch that show, but I think it's funny where like that actress comes in for like 2 episodes a season now, and you have like 20 episodes a season without her, which I think it's really funny.
For sure.
As she's the main lead.
I think like one thing though that kind of sort of speaks to how popular and big the show is that HBO and Warner Bros. In general culled a lot of their big shows or last year or the year before, like Westworld, stuff like that were cancelled. I think the fact they didn't just outright cancel Euphoria probably speaks to how big the show performs for them.
Yeah.
But also I think, I mean, going forward, the show should maybe just kind of consider doing an anthology format the same way they did those 2 specials during COVID, like bringing like where we had I forget the actor's name, the guy who plays Strand in Fear the Walking Dead, like the episode that was just him and Zendaya in the diner. Like I think do episodes like that where you just have 1 or 2 of the cast come back for an episode, like sort of do something whatever with it. Yeah, no, pretty much just do movies. I think that would work.
Yeah, I'd be down. But yeah, let's hop into kind of our main topic here, and that's just talking about some of our favorite modern TV shows. Now, we picked out 5 for each of us that we all kind of talked about, and we'll just kind of go through this list. Hopefully, we won't spend too long on these because I know I don't want to keep you guys all day, but we have some fun shows to talk about. I love TV, man. I clearly you guys watch more TV than me, unfortunately, so I have a little less to share than you guys. But let's just hop into our first show here. I think this was one of your picks, Connor. The Office, which is a show I hadn't even heard of the show. I didn't even know this was a thing. Do you want to talk about this one a little bit?
Sure. So I actually only watched this for the first time last weekend because I was holding off for a while. Like I was really interested in it for a while. But the point of the show is that it's a biopic of Albert Ruddy, the guy who was the main producer for the Godfather film, and it's played by Miles Teller. And the whole 10-episode series is just about how much they went through to get The Godfather made. So I was holding off on watching it because I wanted to rewatch The Godfather because I hadn't seen it in like 10 years. So I finally rewatched The Godfather last weekend, and I just jumped straight into this afterwards. And it came out last year on Paramount Plus, and it was just great. Like it just really felt like sort of 10 episodes of love and history and care about 1960s and 1970s Hollywood. Like during the show, you're seeing Albert Ruddy. So like one of the first scenes is him pitching Hogan's Heroes to CBS, and it's just you're seeing a lot of this sort of film history and TV history thread it. Like you have bits where people are arguing over who should get the rights to Chinatown, over if Chinatown could even get off the ground. You've got somebody ringing Jack Nicholson, seeing if he'll been in it. You've got Marlon Brando, a guy playing Marlon Brando coming in, and he's like, have you heard me in this movie? And people are like, no, Marlon, we've got no idea what you're talking about. It's a lot of sort of seeing the how unique a lot of these big 1970s Hollywood people were, and you've got people playing them to absolute perfection. And I just loved it. Like I think it's a really sort of, it feels like a crash course in this era of film. So I think if you're interested in kind of knowing more about it, like just watch the show for that, because it's good. It's also seeing sort of them recreate scenes from The Godfather with completely new actors, but seeing it from the perspective of the actor who plays Francis Ford Coppola as he's filming it is just it's like, I'm not even that big of a Godfather fan, but it gave me chills. I was like, this just feels so well made, and so like there's so much heart and love put into this. It was really, really enjoyable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen the whole thing, but I've seen I watched, I think, like the first 2 episodes when it came out, because I'd heard really good stuff about it, and I agree that even just like the intro credits to it, I was like, damn, because I think they show like footage of actually the old like Paramount studio and that stuff, and it was cool. Like I agree with you. It's kind of like paying homage to that time and like that. For sure. That type of filmmaking and stuff. I remember I really liked the scene with I think they had Sinatra in the premiere episode, and like kind of going into that whole controversy of that. Like basically, I mean, right? The book is Mario Puzo.
Yeah, Mario Puzo. Yeah.
Right, and so he, one of the characters in The Godfather is like basically Frank Sinatra, but they just don't use his name. And so it was cool, like seeing some of those behind the scenes kind of stuff they dive into. I wasn't a fan of Juno Temple in it. That was like the only negative I had at the beginning. I don't know. I felt like that character like didn't really fit in to the rest, like with the tone of it.
For sure, yeah.
But I
always see her as Keely from Ted Lasso. Like I always like every time I see her, Nathan, I'm like, oh, it's Keely. That's kind of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And Darren, you haven't seen this?
I haven't seen it. Nope. There's a lot of shows that like I was like, these are so many shows I wanted to watch, or like some I was like, I haven't even heard of the show. Like this is crazy. Oh, wow. But now this is like, I'll add a bunch of new shows to that giant list of shows I'll never get to. It's how it goes. And another one that I haven't seen that I've been really, really it's been on that list of shows I've been meaning to get to for years, and that's Succession. It's like it's always at the very top of the list, and then something else comes in. It's like, oh, I guess I'm watching this instead. And you guys are both a pretty big fan of this show, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I had a friend recently. I was trying to get him to watch the show, and I've heard this from other people too, but it's like, I think, and even in my experience, like I remember because I watched the pilot when it aired, and I did like a review, and I was like, it's actually hilarious because I go and like watch that pilot review, and I'm like, it's like, it's okay, but like I think it needs to like find the tone and stuff like this, and like now it's like one of my favorite shows of all time. But it's true though, like the first few episodes, and my friend said this, like it's a little tough to like get into that tone and like accept that these characters are like the way that they are, and it's not really going to change. But I think it was episode 6 in season 1 where I was like, okay,
the boardroom one.
I can't. Yeah, it's like the boardroom where he's like, Romulus, you better be sniffing your armpit or something like that when he puts his arm up. It was like that episode of that scene. I was like, okay, I'm in. And then ever since then I was in, but it's kind of tough to start, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I was pretty late on the show. I only ended up catching up just for season 4. because I've been hearing about it for so long about how great it was, but my watch list was just so long. But then when season 4 kind of got a release date, I was like, all right, I'm gonna binge the first 3 seasons and watch it. It's definitely one of the most well-made, most well-written shows of the last like 10 to 15 years. Like it's absolutely fantastic. And I think how they play the dialogue scenes is something I really like. Like it never feels like characters are just saying things just to say them. It feels like there's a realistic way that they're speaking. Like that, like how you have Roman and Kendall and Shiv and Tom in those scenes always sort of talking to each other. It feels like they're real people who are in these real situations talking to each other in a way that you don't see on other shows. It reminds me of how sort of It's Always Sunny approaches their dialogue scenes, where like Glenn Howerton always talks about how they make sure to have characters talking over each other, because in real life, like people talk over each other all the time. And I feel like Succession does that really well too, where you have characters in a dialogue scene and people are just talking over each other and yelling over each other. It doesn't feel like anybody's waiting for the next person to say their line. Like it's happening, and it's I love that about the show as well. Because everybody's also just played to absolute perfection. Like Brian Cox as Logan is phenomenal. Like he's so good, and that soundtrack as well. It's just it's peak. Nicholas Brittle, I think, is the composer's name. The guy did Andor as well. It's the main theme is one of the best like TV show themes of all time.
Yeah, I agree. It's to me, it's like I say this because I've had it in my I do like top TV shows of the year or whatever for my channel, and I think every single season has been in the mix. And I say it every year, but it's like this show is probably like some years is the funniest show I've watched.
Yeah, genuinely.
Just like laugh out loud moments, and like you go back revisiting clips and that. But then on the other side of it, it's like this is some of the best drama, like emotional kind of scenes and moments of the year as well. So it's like the ability to balance the comedy and the drama, I think, is just so perfect. Like it's just and there's even there's kind of emotional moments within the comedy, right? Like like Roman will be well, I don't know. We don't want to go into too much stuff on maybe on a stream, but he has some sort of relationship with Jerry, we'll say. Connor,
Yeah.
And so it's kind of played for comedy, right? And it is it's pretty funny. But then it also is like within the comedy, it's kind of showing like how kind of damaged he is and like why he has these kind of instincts, because he's been neglected and he hasn't, he doesn't have these relationships and stuff like that. And so it's just like I really love the show. And I think season 2, what did you think, like what was your favorite season, would you say, of the show?
I think season 4 was my favorite. I think like the first 3 seasons for me were easily like 4.5 out of 5s, I think. But then the final season, I think, was like just a straight up a 5 out of 5. Like I think like episodes like Connor's wedding, the final stuff like that. Like
got married?
But yeah, I did. But it's like I felt like the episode, like the one as well with the election episode in season 4 as well. Those were just some of the best episodes of TV I've seen, I think, ever. They were just so well crafted and so well done. And I think like what you're saying about the emotion and the comedy as well is, I think that's something HBO handles very well. You have like with Barry as well, where Barry can sometimes be the most serious emotional show you've seen, and other times it's just hilarious. Like Righteous Gemstones does that a lot as well. And there's a scene in the end of season 1 where I forget exactly when it happens or what the context of it was, but where Roman's watching a live stream of like a rocket or something, and he's sitting in the bathroom watching it, and then something insane happens, and he just puts the phone down and walks out. It's like it's such a serious, like, holy shit scene, but then it's played off in sort of an emotional but comedic way, and it's just, the show handles it so well.
Yeah. I think and especially I think it's was it season 3 where they have the where we'll just say Roman sends a message to his dad instead of Jerry.
Yeah.
And his face, like he's just so good at those kind of reactions. But yeah, so I asked you what I think season 2 is my favorite.
Okay.
Although season 4 is very good. But I think season 2 is one of the best like character arcs I've ever seen on TV, like with Kendall, where he starts in season 2, like in episode 1 and where he ends in the finale of season 2. Like, I just think that's it's just so good. And now I wasn't a huge fan of the start of season 3 because I really thought like, okay, I really thought the main character is Kendall here for the show, and
For
like,
sure, yeah, same.
Season 3, it's going to be him. I don't want to spoil too much for Darren, but he was going to kind of continue on where he was going to go, and I feel like that kind of fizzled out a little too early for my liking. And the show kind of just kept that more ensemble nature rather than just Kendall being our main character going forward. But other than that, I mean, just like a near perfect show, I think.
For sure. I think that they handle the character moments so well. Like what you're saying about Kendall, like in season 2, the way that they take his character throughout that season is so well done. I think it's the second episode of season 2. He goes into a shop and he just like takes a thing of batteries and just steals it, and then just walks outside and just like throws it in the bin straight away. And it's this very subtle piece of character work that it's not really followed up on or really sort of pointed out or addressed too much, but it's sort of there to just paint a bigger picture of who this character is. And I think, a lot of shows, they can't handle that. And I think Succession handles that extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the one other thing I was going to say is it's unbelievable how well. So first off, when I was watching season 1 of the show, and I used to watch the Emmys. Like I was like huge into Emmys and like predicting. Not as much anymore, but back then I was like, because Jesse Armstrong was nominated for the finale of season 1, which is amazing. But I was like, oh, there's no, because Succession back then was not that popular in season 1. And so I was like, oh, I don't know. And then he won the writing Emmy for that episode for the finale. And then that's kind of when I was like, okay, like, everyone really loves the show. And then season 2, I think, is like when it kind of blew up. Yeah. But the most interesting thing to me is, like I said, I used to be into the Emmys a lot. And so Jesse Armstrong won for the season 1 finale. He won for the season 2 finale. He won for the season 3 finale. Yeah, the season 3 finale and the season 4 finale.
That's insane.
And I'm pretty sure, I mean, I could be wrong with some of the other shows, but at least since like the 2000s, like no other showrunner or writer has won that many Emmys and like literally 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
So, I just think that's like, I was blown away by that.
My biggest complaint about Succession is just that it was airing alongside Better Call Saul, which meant Better Call Saul was getting snubbed all the time.
Yeah.
100%.
That's my only thing.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the main thing I've heard about the show. It's just like when your award season comes up, and it's like Succession's won everything. It's like, oh my gosh, I gotta watch the show, and I never did. Same with The Bear, which has been currently going on, and I don't think any of us has that in our list. I'm literally so close to watching it. Like I was about to start a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, Walking Dead, I'm just gonna go through that, and then I'll get to The Bear. But like, I've heard amazing things, and that's coming up. That they have a new season in the next couple of months.
I mean, I like The Bear, but I'm not as into it as a lot of other people. I think The Bear routinely puts out 1 or 2 episodes a season. Well, I mean, they've only had 2 seasons so far, but in their 2 seasons, they put out like 2 episodes in both seasons that are some of the best TV I've seen of the year. But then the rest of the season, I'm not nearly as into as a lot of other people.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I only caught up on season 2 recently, so I didn't even put it in my top TV shows of last year. It probably would have been, but I hadn't caught up on it. And yeah, I agree. There's a couple episodes. It took me to like see maybe episode 4 or 5 of season 1 to really buy in. And then I think it's like episode 7 of that season.
It's like all one shot in the restaurant.
Yes, yeah. That obviously that was like really impressive. And then was it Knives in season 2?
Yeah, that's my favorite of the show, I think.
Okay. Yeah. I really like that one too. Yeah, I agree with you actually. I think there's like some really good episodes and moments. But as a whole, I'm not sure if it would be, especially season 1. I wouldn't put season 1 up there like on a list like this.
Slow. Yeah. Very fun stuff. All right, next up on the list, and this was my first pick, and that's Ted Lasso, which I wasn't sure if because like when I think of like the best shows on TV, Ted Lasso wasn't like the first one to come to mind. And I think you guys chose some of the ones that I would have originally put on my list. So like that put me in an interesting spot. Like, what are some other shows that I would really like to shout out? And I do think Ted Lasso, especially kind of like on a revisiting, because I watched it the first through and I really liked it. And I rewatched it kind of again, and like I do think that this show has really has a special place in my heart. And I think it's kind of just like the perfect, I think it's the kind of TV we need in life. It's not like maybe always the most well written, or maybe it's not always like the best show on TV, but I think the energy it puts out, and I think the comedy it puts out, and the type of character Ted is, it's just like such like a spirit animal that I would like to embody. Connor, you're a pretty big fan as well, right?
Yeah, but I'm a fan of it for a lot of reasons that other people aren't. Like, I mean, I've constantly seen a lot of criticism aimed towards both season 2 and season 3, because a lot of people feel like those seasons, whereas season 1 is mostly a very wholesome comedic season with emotional stuff sprinkled throughout, but like at the forefront, it's a comedic wholesome show. Whereas season 2 and 3 definitely delve more into sort of the serious aspects and the trauma and stuff like that, like Ted's panic attacks and anxiety happening all the time.
I love that stuff.
Yeah, like I that's my favorite part of the show. Is I love all 3 seasons, but I think my favorite part of the show is when it gets a little bit more serious. Like, it's a hilarious show, but I love how they handle the more sort of real aspects of it, which they jump into later in seasons 2 and 3. So I think I like season 3 more than season 2 and 1, and I like season 2 more than season 1. Okay. Yeah, even though I love them all.
Oh, that's interesting. I think season 1's the best, but I think season 2 is my favorite because it kind of feels like everything's kind of like all the characters are in place, and it feels like they're all on their paths. Like, season 1 is at best, but I feel like the back and forths of characters aren't there because they haven't grown to love each other yet. In season 2, they're all family then, and all my favorite aspects, like Roy's now a coach, and he's in that place, and the Keeley stuff I feel like has kind of built up in such a way. And I think it's weird because I wouldn't necessarily say it's would you say it's like a sitcom? Because I wouldn't say it's a sitcom. It's more like a drama, right?
Yeah, I would say it's more drama because it feels quite serialized. I feel like while there's sometimes sort of one-off episodes, I think for the most part it feels like they're following storylines throughout the seasons. So I would say it's more drama serialized than sitcom.
Yeah. And it's so good because I wouldn't even say it's the funniest show I've seen or anything, because I wouldn't say the jokes are the most grandiose I've ever seen as far as stuff like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and stuff like that I love, but there is something about the comedy that is such it's just wholesome comedy, I guess, and his dad jokes and the the situations. Although Roy is just one of the funniest characters I've ever seen. Roy is top 10 characters I think in fiction. I love Roy, and the back and forth of characters, and what you were saying about I love the trauma of characters, and I think I've never seen another show tackle the idea of toxic positivity, and I think that's such a fascinating subject matter of this character that is just too positive for his own good. And what happens when maybe you need to we always say you need to be more positive in life, and you need to have a better front about you, but what happens when it's too much and you have to reel back? And seeing Ted's journey through these first the 3 seasons are amazing, and there's part of me that's I wish it could have gone further, and I think you could have done more with it, but also I can respect you stopping at 3. You stopped while you were good. Season 3 is technically my least favorite, I think. I wasn't a huge fan of a couple things I did, but it's still, I think, better than most TV I've seen over the last couple years. So,
for sure,
Ted Lasso.
So did they cancel it, or
no?
I think it just ended. Yeah, it just ended.
They always said it was going to be a 3-season planned show, and even though it blew up way more than they were expecting it to, they didn't expect it to get as big as it did. They still stuck to their guns and were like, okay, 3 seasons is the story we're telling.
It's actually crazy how much it blew up. I couldn't believe I see puzzles and stuff everywhere for Ted Lasso. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It also ends in such a way though that it feels kind of like it easily could have transitioned to a spin-off that called Richmond or something that was about the cast and not just Ted Lasso. Which I think it's interesting they never followed up on that, because I thought it was pretty much a given as soon as the show ended that they were gonna announce a Roy Kent or a Richmond or something like that.
Right.
But they never did. But I think what you're saying about the comedy, I think the funniest parts of the show for me is always kind of Jason's physical comedy. The way The scenes
Busting the
where
rooms.
yeah, busting through. That's literally what I was thinking. Where he just like kicks the door in when somebody says a pun or something, and he's like,
Yeah.
I like that. And like the bit where he's drinking the tea as well, and he tries and he just immediately spits it back in the cup. It's like garbage water. He just puts it like it seems like that are funny, like rather than just straight up jokes.
Yeah, I mean, man, Roy. Every episode, Roy has a line where it's just like, all right, that's the funniest thing I've heard. Like, I loved his hairy ass bit in the final scene. Like, that line is so good. Now, what have you said a single... Like, it's so good. He has that, like, gravitas towards him that's always so much fun to watch. I don't know. Like, we had talked about in the past, like, should you do another, like, a Richmond show or whatever? And, like, selfishly, I'd be like, yes, I want more of the show. I love the show. But I'm almost kind of glad they didn't. Like, kind of just leave this almost perfect show as it is. Not to say that, like, you know, if you do a spinoff, obviously that's a separate show and this is something else. If you've ruined this show, it's fine. But, like, I don't know. I think there is a lot of, like, respect when it comes to just, like, doing a 3-season show and then being done. No spinoffs, no sequels, no revivals. Just being like, it's done and we're walking away and being like, whoa. And that's hard. Like,
it is. It's really hard.
Giving things up is hard. Like, we have now, like, trained ourselves as, like, a show's over, but it can come back in a couple of seasons, or can get a second season or a sequel. Like, and I love that stuff. But sometimes it is nice to just be like, we're done, we're walking away, never again. And who knows? Probably in 15 years they'll be back for another movie or something. But, like, I'm currently okay that we're not doing anything at the moment.
No, I completely agree. But I think, like, my thing with Ted Lasso is that I think the show is very much it. While Ted Lasso is, I guess, the central character, it's a show for me that every single character is so integral to the thing working that I don't think I'd want to see a spin-off that doesn't have even one character, because all of them are so important to the whole thing working. Yeah. Like, you take one of them out, the thing doesn't flow as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like, I think you could do it, because especially in that final season, I felt like Ted took a little bit, not a backseat, but like there would be episodes where he would just not be in it. And and like, I do think that is a compliment to the show in these casts where, like, Roy can hold his own episode, or, you know, Keely can hold her own episode. But you are definitely right. Like, I do think there'd be something just in your heart, like, this doesn't feel right without Ted being there. That beating heartbeat of the show. I think you need at least another new character to kind of balance maybe his, like, energy a bit that the show brought.
I'm sorry to rain on your parade, but I watched like the first couple episodes, and I wasn't a huge fan. But I'm also, I don't know, I'm more used to, like, one of my favorite comedies is We're the Millers. I don't know if you guys know that, with Jason Sudeikis. Yeah. And I was just way more, like, used to that comedy of his. And so I think I really didn't give it a fair, like, shot. This was back in I don't know when it came out, probably season 1. Yeah. But you guys talk about season 2 and 3 being like a bit of a different tone. Maybe that is something that I'd be a little more interested in. I liked Brett Goldstein. Is that? Yeah. I liked his character. Oh, he's Roy. Okay, yeah. So I liked him in the first couple episodes. He was funny. But yeah, I was just kind of like taken aback by Jason Sudeikis being in this kind of different, like, you know, like you said, like dad jokes and that kind of thing. Yeah. Which there's a place for that, and I just wasn't used to that, you know. Seeing some
that's fair.
It's definitely, like, I would say it's definitely not a show for everyone. Like there's people that just won't vibe with the show, and that's completely valid. Like, I think that's completely fine. Like, there's people like, it's too positive, I don't like it, and I'd be like, that's valid. That's so valid. But I personally really love it. I don't know.
Which I'm kind of saying. That's why I like when the show took a little bit more of a serious turn. I kind of, you know, like when you dig into why Ted's as positive as he is, and like the real sort of trauma behind that, like, I think the once the show takes that sort of spin, while a lot of people didn't like it, it made the show just better for me. It made it more of a, I guess, a complicated show, which I felt like the first few episodes didn't really paint a good picture of how intricate a lot of these character stories were. And then, like, once you sort of dig into it, you're like, okay, I kind of see why.
I loved all the therapy stuff in season 2. Like, I thought that was some of the show's best stuff. And Danny's, like, dog kicking arc was so funny. Like, it's and like, I do think it, like, rides that arc of, like, it is a comedy still, but like, it does mix that drama, I think, very well, especially in season 2. So all right, up next we have, Connor, this is your next pick, and that's Dark. The 3rd season of Dark aired 2020, right?
No, the 3rd season is the only one that aired in 2020.
That's
sorry, that we said. Okay, sorry, I thought you said first season. No, yeah, the first and second I think came out in like 2017, 2018, or 2019.
Okay.
And then season 3 came out 2020, which this is just one of the most well thought out and well planned shows I've ever seen in my life. Like the way this show handles time travel and how everything ties together. Like it's a confusing show. I still don't have my head around like how everything sticks together, or how the family like ties together, or how all its timelines are where they are. But I think how they sort of wrap everything up is fantastic, and it's such a good job at sort of making time travel work in a way that feels real, in a sense. Like I'd like a lot of things is, use time travel as a plot device, whereas I think Dark uses it to just tell, like, to like showcase the science behind it, showcase how it sort of works, how it ties into things, and then using that itself to showcase these time periods and these characters. And I don't know, it's just it's fantastic. It's a heavy show, but it's absolutely fantastic. Have either you seen it? I know you haven't, Darren.
Yeah, so I it's similar to, now I don't want to compare like Constellation to this, because I know this is like quite a bit better, but it's a similar thing of like that, like I said, like that kind of, I guess it's like a thriller, like mystery, like genre stuff, but it's like taking that step back, like, whoa, like so I think I only watched season 1, and then I think I watched in the worst circumstance the season 2, I think, premiere. I was like on very little sleep, and I think I like almost fell asleep during it or something.
Okay, yeah.
And then I just never went back to it, which is unfortunate. But I mean, it was just so like confusing, but in a good way. Yeah. Right. Like in Constellation, I felt like, at points it was like confusion for confusion's sake, kind of.
Yeah.
But in this show, it's like, wow, like this is, they actually thought out, all the stuff that's happening, and like this is happening for a reason, because it's part of a bigger thing. So right now it seems confusing, but later, like it's all part of our plan, kind of thing. Yeah. Right. And so it was really great. I was really looking forward to, by the way, 1899.
Yeah. Did you watch it?
I did watch that show, and I couldn't believe that Netflix canceled it.
Same.
Right? Like,
real disappointing.
Because I really liked the show. I didn't think it was as good as what I saw in Dark, like for the first season or so that I watched. But I really liked it. I especially like the first few episodes of it. I thought were really cool. And then when we get kind of a twist that they're being watched, right? On the ship. I don't know. I just thought it was like really great. I thought Netflix loved these guys, obviously, after Dark and what they did, and then to cancel the show after the first season,
didn't give it a chance.
I was shocked. Yeah.
No, I completely agree, because it's like 1899 feels very similar to Dark, whereas I think Dark gets better each season because the mystery has been sort of, more pieces to it have been given to you each season. And I feel like 1899 would have been the same thing, whereas you just have to stick with it. Like you need to see the rest of the show for the early stuff to make sense. And I was annoyed Netflix canceled that, because it's like you've seen how much this works with Dark. Why are you not letting this work with 1899?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, and I think the acting was maybe a little bit better in 1899. Like I forget his, I'm not sure if this is the right pronunciation, but it's like Andreas Pitchman or Pitchman or something. I thought he was amazing in the first season. His acting, and then Emily Beecham, I think, was the lead actress, and she was great too. So I was like, yeah, it's a mystery, but I do think they put a lot of money into it. Like the intro credits were really cool, I remember, and it just seemed like a big kind of production. So, and I will say too, like the first episode, I think it's like till the end of it, it seems like it's like kind of just a normal show. Like, yeah. Right? Like there's not like anything going on under the surface. And so I think maybe some people were like, especially the trailer too, I think like they kind of set it up like, oh, it's just like the shipwreck and stuff is going on. It's not the part where they're being watched. And maybe some people started watching and then were like, oh, this isn't what I signed up for. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know.
I completely get that, because like it does feel sort of like the aesthetic and the tone of it in sort of this industrial era, like steamship, is already just a really cool concept that you could set a whole show on that with nothing underneath the surface and it would still be really cool. So for people coming in, like maybe who want to see a show like that, and then being like, oh, this is actually going to be something a little bit more confusing than I sort of like something more demanding, where something you like you have to think about more than if it's just sort of a straightforward show. Which I get that as well, that's not for everybody.
And two, I really thought that Netflix would like it because there were so many different languages, right? They had all the different, and they were trying to depict like the different cultures in that. And so I thought that was a big thing too for Netflix because it was mainly in well, I guess it was like in a lot of different languages, right? But German, French,
German, French,
bunch of So I thought that was going to be a big thing for Netflix because they're like, okay, we have this series that all different people can watch. Like they love that because they're like really diving into the foreign shows and that stuff now. And Dark, I think, was like one of the first ones, really. So yeah, again, I don't understand why it got canceled, but whatever.
Yeah,
Netflix they don't. I feel like they don't give shows a chance anymore. Like they need them to be at full. Everybody watches all 8 episodes the day it comes out. Like you need 10 million people watching all the episodes as soon as they come out for it to do well or something like that. Which is just it's not.
Yeah, I agree.
Netflix, I mean, I love the stuff that they often put out, but they're so frustrating with how their model, how they work. Like we've talked about, like they need like. If I was Netflix, I would scale because like they're in debt. Like they put out, so they're always making shows, they're always making stuff. I was like, just make like 12 shows a year and just pace it out weekly. If you just do your weekly model where like every month there's a new show instead of like 5 shows a week, and it's just like they don't push their stuff out, like they don't like promote it unless it's like their top 5, unless it's Stranger Things or like Wednesday or whatever. Like they're One Piece and Avatar, like they have their shows. They're like, yeah, these are the biggest shows in the world. And I just like they cancel everything on the spot. It's so frustrating. Like with like, I mean, just in TV now, it's just like in general, not to go on a sidetrack here, but like I hate starting new shows unless I know like it's renewed, it's another season, because I'm tired of like starting new stuff just to be like, oh, it's over now. It's like, well, I don't know, you know what I mean? So that can be frustrating, but
yeah, I agree. And the biggest thing I saw, I'm not like the biggest Stranger Things fan, but I do really like the show. Yeah, and this last season, I think I said this on my channel where I was like, I just loved the whole thing of waiting that like month or something that they did in between the last 2 episodes.
Yeah,
I just like, and they did it, and now I think they're saying like they're not going to do that. They're just going to release all of season 5, and I'm like, everyone said that they really liked this, model. And I love that because it's like you watch the 7 episodes, you have to wait a little bit, and that like finale especially, it was like over 2 hours or something.
Yeah, it was 2.5 hours was insane.
And I just love that though, because it's like I'm setting up to like watch a movie tonight to watch this finale that I've been now waiting this time and anticipating. So and then like I said, I think it's season 5. They're just like, oh no, we'll just roll out. Are they doing it in 2 parts or what are they?
I don't even know. Like again, like I think they could rule the like streaming world if they just did weekly. Like they have the powerhouse shows do that. If you like, imagine you do Stranger Things weekly, One Piece weekly, Avatar weekly. Like they would be on top of like the TV world by far, I think. Because
I mean, Netflix are the only ones like sticking to that. Like Netflix are the only ones still committed to doing all at once. Because even Amazon used to do that. Yeah. Like as soon as The Boys did really well in season 1, Amazon were like, okay, we'll release season 2 and 3 weekly. Like
because you lose all that hype instantly, and it's like, oh yeah, we talked about that for 2 days and now it's over. Like I don't know, it's frustrating.
I agree. It's like the I think Stranger Things, but to be fair, they do get like a massive boost in like traffic, right? That first like weekend or whatever it comes out. And it's like, okay, but I think, it would be better to kind of have that prolonged thing of like, okay, we're talking about this show for 2 months instead of all of this traffic and all of this stuff in 1 week.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're looking at like Game of Thrones, like type of like a hype if you do that weekly. Like, Game of Thrones is probably what's like the biggest show as far as like your like viewerships of all time, right? And I feel like there hasn't been a show to rival that. And I think Stranger Things is right there under it as one of the biggest shows of all time, but they do it all at once. It's like, oh, okay, so you're not going to get that hype train that you would have with the show that would go on 13 episodes a season like Game of Thrones did and stuff like that. So
because like people are talking about Stranger Things for what, a week, and then you don't really hear people talk about it again for 2 or 3 years till the next season comes out.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a big thing too. I feel like they've taken a little too long, like between seasons, especially with the like, imagine if they did imagine if they did a season a year, it would just be like so much, like, I don't know. I think they've taken, especially between these last 2 seasons. I understand like the strikes were probably a part of it too, but
COVID,
I don't know. It seemed like a long time.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah,
it's been like it's been 4 seasons in like 8 years, and it's like that's a lot. That's a lot. All right, let's hop into these next shows. We got Better Call Saul, which I think would be in all of our top 3s. Which shows that we all just really, or picks. Like this would have been all of our picks. I think we're all pretty big fans of Mr. Jimmy over here. Chatter, let's start with you because this was under your kind of list of things. What's your thoughts on the show?
All right. So first off, Breaking Bad to me is the best TV show ever made. It's my favorite one. So yeah, obviously, and Better Call Saul to me is like, it's got to be close, if not like number 2 now, right? So yeah, obviously I love Better Call Saul. I think I watched Breaking Bad for the first time like in season 5, like just when it was ending. So I wasn't really a part of when it was airing, but I watched Better Call Saul since the beginning of it. So it was kind of cool to kind of watch the journey. And I will say I did rewatch the first 5 seasons before the final season, and it was like watching the show for the first time in some of the aspects, because it was literally like 6 years since I had seen some of the stuff. So that was really cool. But when you rewatch it, I think there's a lot of stuff, just like Breaking Bad, where they set up things, in certain episodes and seasons, and it, like, they always paid off. They always come back to it. It always like kind of, makes sense. It comes full circle. And then in terms of, so we're talking about, TV shows. So I think season 5 was 2020.
Yeah.
Season 6 was 2022.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of just those 2 seasons, I thought season 5 was really great. Season 6 I thought was really great. I think season 4 may be my favorite, or I think season 1's really good too, actually. But yeah. And so what did you guys, well, I guess you can talk about your whole thing with the show too, but I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on season 6, especially like the ending and that stuff as well.
Yeah. I loved season 6. I had just kind of because I was late on both of the shows. Like I just watched the Breaking Bad stuff a couple years ago, and I was trying to get caught up for the final season, and I didn't get caught up until the final episode, like the week it aired. So that was the only episode I ever watched live. So that was kind of fun. Just kind of hurry up and get caught up with it. I'm really bad with watching. Yeah, I was like, I'm going to watch one of these live. I gotta do, and I wanted to do the whole season, but that did not happen. I love the final episode. I think that's a fantastic way to end the show. And I think my whole thing with Better Call Saul is I haven't seen like as many TV shows as you guys, but it's one of the only shows where I thought like it didn't drop in quality for 6 seasons. I think that's very hard. There's so many shows where like it seems like some of the best shows ever made are usually 3 seasons or 5 seasons. This was 6 seasons straight of just like, in my opinion, perfect TV. I think Better Call Saul is a little bit better than Breaking Bad, or at least I enjoy it a little bit more than Breaking Bad, which is a hot take. I know I would say that's a hot take. I just think and maybe just because I enjoy Jimmy a bit more as a character. I love the lawyer stuff within the show, and I think it's just one of the, as far as like if you were to ask me what's the greatest made show you've ever seen, I might say Better Call Saul, because I do think it's just consistently through just banger after banger.
Yeah. Can I say I really appreciate you guys putting Succession, Better Call Saul, and Ted Lasso in your picks, because I would have put them in my picks, and I didn't want to like. I was like, oh, there's so many shows I want to choose, and these guys are already choosing these, great. So I don't have to. But,
right, I can choose other stuff. Yeah,
exactly, pretty much. But no, like I was the exact same as you, Charbox, where I started watching Breaking Bad during season 5. So like, I think I caught up on it around when Ozymandias aired. Like pretty much the week that episode aired was when I got caught up, and then I was watching all of Better Call Saul live. But yeah, I'm the same as you, Darren, where I think it's potentially the most well-made show I've ever seen in my life. Like I think I'd like it more than Breaking Bad, just because to me personally, I think Breaking Bad is this team and this crew sort of learning their craft, and they're putting out this absolute perfect television, but they're learning their craft while they're doing it. Well, Better Call Saul is like Peter Gold and Vince Gilligan and all of them at the absolute top of their game, where they're just from the very beginning, this is just perfect television. And I love how every season kind of feels a little different as well. Like, I love every season. I think season 1, like Jimmy in season 1 is such a different character than he is. Like Mike in season 1 is such a different character.
Yeah.
You've got everything is so different. And the way sort of season 1 is so focused on sort of Jimmy doing these really small time sort of legal cases, like with the Kettleman family, where he's sort of kind of dealing with them and how annoying they are and how they take the money and they go camping. And it's so well done. And I think it's one of the most well-made shows I've ever seen, because to me, it feels like sometimes every single shot has way more effort put into it than it should. Like, you'll see sometimes the camera will be inside a vending machine and we'll be watching sort of Jimmy and Bill Oakley sort of talking outside the machine, and you've got like the things inside it moving. It's like, how did they even do that? This is a 5-second shot that must
100%.
have taken a day to plan out. Like,
100%.
it's insane. For season 5 and 6, I think season 5 is my favorite season of the show. I love sort of how every episode in that season is sort of building up. Lalo is building up. Nacho is sort of, we're seeing Jimmy fully being Saul now. We're seeing a lot of this sort of stuff. Also, then I think kind of the final 3 episodes of season 5, like Bagman, Something Unforgivable, and what was the name of episode 9? The one with Kim and Jimmy? I forget. But like that whole scene in the inside
Bad
of
Choice
Jimmy.
Road? Is that what
Bad Choice Road. That's it. Yeah. Inside Jimmy and Kim's apartment with Lalo showing up, like, that's the most intense scene I think in the entire Breaking Bad franchise, because you don't know what's going to happen to Kim, and it's just, it's so terrifying.
That's so true.
And then and Ray Searon, I think, should have gotten an Emmy at some point,
especially this last year. It was this last year was like the time, and
First scene on the bus.
Exactly.
Her scene on the bus is insane. Like,
exactly. And they even put her in supporting, which to me, I think she should be lead. I think she should have been lead like the past 3 years, but they put her in supporting because it's like, okay, she has a better shot at that. And then she still did not win. So
that's absurd. I can't believe they didn't win anything over the years. Like, that is
I think they're the most nominated with no wins, I think, ever, is what I saw.
Bonkers.
Yeah, that's crazy. I forget the point I was going to make, but so the shots, I mean, I completely agree with that. And there's something else that I haven't, even in Succession, like something in this show where I was like, you know how they do sometimes like the whatever you like to call them, like the intro or like the teaser to episodes, where it's like
the cold opens sort of thing.
So the time like before the intro plays, and some of the stuff, like Breaking Bad, they did this masterfully too, but in Better Call Saul, even like more so, it's just so brilliant. They do these little things that you're like, sometimes you're like, what was that? This makes no sense. It's so confusing. And then usually by the end of the episode, or at least in the next few episodes, it's like, oh, and again, like I said, they always bring it back. It always, there's nothing in the show to me that's like wasted time.
Yeah.
Ever. Right? Like, it's always there for a purpose of some sort to bring it back in. And I don't like, even again, like Succession, that's not true. Like any of the other big shows that people talk about, Sopranos, The Wire, like there's no other show like that is like, there's really no wasted time or anything like that.
Completely agree. In terms of like the openings, I think one of the main ones for those for me was the episode that opened with the ice cream on the sidewalk and the ants all over it, and you're like, what is this? Why are we opening on this? And then the end of the episode has Jimmy like throwing the ice cream out the car window. That's
exactly.
I think like in terms of the final, there was one bit in the final I still feel a little weird about, and I don't think it's because I don't like it. It's just because it's the bit where he's on the bus going to the prison and everybody starts going, better call Saul. Better call Saul. And I was like, this is very unusual. This feels like it doesn't fit with the show. But not in a bad way. It stuck out to me as something that was unique, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think I wasn't I really liked the finale, but I think I wasn't. I can't even fully remember it now, but I there was some points, especially. It was kind of like that speech that he gave, that like monologue thing.
I didn't love that either.
Yeah, I felt like it was maybe a little like too exposition-y, or there was something there, but I did like the overall kind of thing. And then I don't know, are we allowed to spoil a little bit of it? But with having Betsy Brandt come back as Marie, I thought that was like amazing to kind of put that in there. So no, I really liked the finale, and some really great shots with him in the prison cell, right? And Kim coming to see him. Just some really great stuff there. So
let me ask, do you guys think color should have came back in those final scenes where Jimmy and Kim are in the prison in that interrogation room? Do you think like they should have brought color back, or were they right to keep it completely black and white?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think I've seen like some people who said like there's when he lights like the cigarette, it's like colored or something like that. Or there's been like some people who say like some stuff is colored, but I can't honestly. I don't remember well enough to say like one way or the other. But I did find that really fascinating, right? Because I feel like the whole and that is one thing though I will say about that Breaking Bad to me is I feel like Breaking Bad. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but to me, I feel like that was planned out since the very beginning, at least in terms of Walter White, like where he starts, where he gets to. To me, I feel like Better Call Saul, they didn't have a clear picture of like where it was going to end up. And so I felt like in the start of each of those seasons, the black and white clips, I felt like as the seasons go on, like it did, I don't know, maybe they didn't know the whole time, but to me, it just felt like each season we would get the new clip of footage or whatever. And then I think for the final season, they were like, okay, we have to figure out what's going to happen here. And they piece it all together. And then, they do like 4 or 5 episodes of the black and white. So, which were great.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree with that.
Yep. Great stuff. Great TV.
Yep.
All right. Yep. Let's move on to my next one. Which this was the one I was like, should I put this one on here? I almost feel like I'm cheating. And there's a couple I went through. I was like, should I put this on here? But I just went with it. And that's The Last of Us, the first season.
Cool.
Man, I loved this first season. And like, I loved that first game. And the one thing I kept saying while I was playing the game was like, if this was a TV show, this would be one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And then they made to it like a perfect adaptation of a TV show. And it was like, well, I guess this has to be one of my favorite shows of all time. No, I genuinely, I think this was just such a fun experience. I love that story. And I think what they were able to pull off in this first season was something very impressive. I loved all the casting. I love how, because I'm always hit and miss about like, when you're like putting, like when you're adapting something into something else, should you do different stuff with it, or should you keep it the same? And I do think relatively they keep most of it the same. But my favorite thing out of the whole thing was the third episode. That ended up just being one of my favorite TV episodes of all time. Like I thought you could have just cut that up, put it in like the short film, and it's this perfect movie. And there was just something really special about it, in my opinion, and the journey that they went on. And again, like The Last of Us, I think is such a special journey. Like if you're playing it for the first time, if you're just watching this, if you're both, if you've now played the games, and like I think there's kind of something for everyone in this. Like I think you're adding a lot for the people who've only played the games. You're giving the new people something really special for the first time. Connor, you weren't a huge fan, right? Was this a show that you didn't like?
I liked the TV show a lot. It was I think it was my 3rd or 4th favorite show last year.
Was it? Okay, cool.
My issue is more so with the game, because I like to me personally, I don't love.
Screw you! No,
I hate it so much. No. For the game, I'm like, people always have it in like the greatest game of all time territory, and to me, I've never felt that way, because I always feel like the Last of Us video game is very much just a TV show narrative put into a game. Like, I think to me, it felt like Neil Druckmann wanted to really make a TV show, and he added gameplay around that. But that means that it makes for a pretty much perfect adaptation and a pretty much perfect like video game to television translation ever. I don't think there's been a better one. I think it'll be hard for there to be a better one because it's pretty much as faithful as you can get. The only things that are different are not changing anything, but they're expanding on things. Like episode 3 really expanding on the backstory of these characters from the game that aren't in the game a crazy amount. So it's like it's cool to see things that expand on the characters more and expand on the world more without going out of their way to change things in, like, say, the way the Halo TV show was doing at the moment.
Episode 3 did change, like, it changed the fate
their endings
of those
a little
characters.
bit.
And like I remember people were like pissed when this happened. They're like, they ruined the game. I was like, but you made it better. I thought those characters were way better than they were in the game, and I get you wanted to see Ellie and them meet. Like, I understand that, but like, I will take the episode 3 over what happened in the game any day. Like,
I think it's like it felt like it more so they kept the core story completely intact. They just changed certain interactions between people, which I think was the right thing to do.
Yeah, my only kind of issue with the show is I do think it kind of ending, I thought it was good. I did think it was a little less like impactful than I think the game was. Like, I think the ending is such a like a bang ending. Like,
it's really good,
Like when Joel is going in, he's killing all the doctors and stuff, and how you end the game. Like, I think that's such a, and not to say they did it bad because I didn't, but I did think I wanted a little bit more of like a punch to it that I don't.
It was more montagey in the show.
Yes, and that's my only real issue. I'm super curious for season 2 because they've already said that Joel has finished his filming for season 2. It's like, oh, I hate the sound of that. I know what they're doing, and I hate it so much because I'm so curious how like only TV watchers are going to react to that moment, that big game moment. So it's going to be interesting, I think.
Yeah, I'm only a TV watcher. I've heard a lot about the games. I follow this one channel. He's like, I think Last of Us is his favorite video game, and so I watched his reviews of the show, and it was just so fun to hear somebody like so excited about something and like so into it. I really like the show. I cannot believe still that Craig Mazin is, he did Chernobyl. I don't know if you guys saw Chernobyl. Just a great show, and like prior to that he was like writing. I think he wrote like the Hangover movies or something. Yeah. It's like insane and he directs some of the episodes, or I think the first episode here. And I thought it was just really, really great. So really, really great stuff from him. And to me, being such a big Walking Dead fan, it was so like hard not to compare this show to Walking Dead.
Yeah, same.
And it's like, I think the first episode may have been my favorite of this because this is like the only thing we were lacking in 12 or 13 years of Walking Dead, is because the whole nature of Walking Dead is that Rick is in a coma during when the apocalypse actually breaks out, right? And when this happens. And so to see it in this show, the first like 20 or 30 minutes of that first episode, right, where it's like starting, I was like, this is what I wanted to see and like didn't get to see in Walking Dead. And then what Fear the Walking Dead
like jumped over it as well. kind of.
And then kind of like they advertised it as like, oh, this is the show where we're going to see what happened.
Yeah.
And I just, whatever. Not if you're the Walking Dead fan, but
same.
Yeah. So it was great to see that in this show. I love that part of it. And just what an emotional moment. Like we only knew, his daughter, that character for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But it was like, wow.
Like, such an impact.
Yeah. What a scene. So, and then episode 3, I thought was really great. Obviously, like everyone said, Nick Offerman, so good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and I think he won the Emmy, right, for like guest actor or something. That was great. And Anna Torv, I thought was really good too. She kind of like leaves in episode 3 or something like that. But she was really good too.
Mm.
For sure.
Yeah, I think kind of that's like I always think that's kind of the joy of this world is it's rich characters, and I think like. It was very interesting because I think while you're playing the game, there is a benefit that you're actually like playing as these characters, and I feel like it's easy because it's all through like your POV. So when you're kind of stepping back a bit from the TV shows, like, will these scenes hit us hard? Because like in the game, you're literally playing as Sarah. Like you start the game as Sarah, and you kind of go through that through line, and then it's like, oh, she's dead? No, like I was supposed to save her. Like how does this happen? So I was wondering how they would translate that into the show, and it was like it's perfect. Yeah, like I couldn't have thought of a better. And you like still cry because it's like it's coming. Like all these things are coming, and it's just like I think they nailed it. I'm excited for season 2. I still haven't finished The Last of Us Part 2. I've playing it for like 2 years, but like I'm so excited to see how they adapt certain things in that game. Like internet's going to be mad, but I'm kind of excited for that because I think it's going to be a wild ride.
I'm excited for season 2 because I think it's. I mean, personally, I think that they should be splitting the game from 2 into 2 seasons. And changing it up a lot of that. So I'm happy they're doing that. But The Last of Us to me is really exciting for what it means for video game adaptations going forward. Like I think Sonic, the movies have been doing a really good job at sort of taking elements from the games and putting them into things. But I'd love to see more one-to-one adaptations of game stories into TV shows and stuff. Like Netflix, I think, is working on a BioShock thing. I'd love to see like BioShock Infinite story adapted. Amazon's doing a Fallout thing, but that's an original story. But it'll still be really cool to see sort of how they take the world and make it into a TV show. Because for so long we've been getting just terrible video game movies and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see kind of if Last of Us is sort of the first thing that's you can do things really well if you have people who care about what they're making.
You have a blueprint now, and I think now you've also, like with this and Fallout, there's like, oh wait, a TV show is just a better medium to tell this story. Like movies are just 2 hours, fitting 10, 12, 20 hours or sometimes into 2 hours is insane. Like
for sure.
Dude, TV show, that's clear. And with multiple seasons as well. You don't have to do it all at once as well. So TV. It just makes sense. All right, Connor, we got some Strange New World actions. Star Trek, what's your thoughts on this show?
What kind of the new era of Star Trek is quite hit and miss for me. Like Star Trek Discovery is the first kind of show that sort of started this new era of Star Trek, is very much sort of not what a lot of people wanted to see for Star Trek. And then Star Trek Picard for the first 2 seasons was similar, where a lot of people weren't too happy with it. And I will say Star Trek Picard season 3, I think, is the best season of New Trek. But Strange New Worlds as a whole it embodies the spirit of what the Star Trek TV shows were for decades, back in the 90s, back in the 80s. And I think how they handle sort of the episodic nature and sort of bringing in the retro feel of the original series, but sort of updating it and modernizing it is absolutely fantastic. And the cast of characters is great and the soundtrack is great. I just think this is one of the most perfect TV shows on at the moment. But it's hard to get into because it's a show that is a sequel to Star Trek Discovery while also being a prequel to the original series. Like it's such a niche there where there's so much extra background stuff that people would kind of might want to see before seeing this. So because of that, it's not breaking into the mainstream just yet because there's just so much extra stuff. But I think like as a Star Trek show, it's almost as perfect as you can get. Like it really does sort of mesh a lot of the eras and the worlds together to create what feels like something that could exist in the 90s era of Star Trek but still be really good. So I think it is a great show. Like I think it's they use the what's the thing called from the Mandalorian that they use to make it again? The giant sort of LED room.
Sure, yeah.
They use it on this, but it's like the way they use it on this. I think on the Mandalorian it's way more noticeable when they use it. Like you can always tell when they're not on a real set. Whereas in Stranger Worlds, it always feels like they're actually on the locations they're using it for, which is really good as well.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this was the last one. This was your last show, right? This was your final one, or no? Was that
this one?
Else? Yeah. Was this your final show that you watched it in your timeline of stuff, or no?
That was Star Trek Picard.
Oh, okay.
Strange New Worlds is set kind of pretty early on in the Star Trek timeline. There's like 7 or 8 shows after Strange New Worlds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow. Only really thing I know, I mean, obviously I've heard you talk about over the years, but only thing I know my history with the show is like Disney came out with a movie called Strange Worlds, and I would always call it like Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
Every time I watched it, I was like, I'm gonna go see Strange New Worlds. I was like, wait, that's not it. That's Connor's thing. I can't. So yeah, no, I mean, I'm really glad that you liked the show so much. I know, how big of a Star Trek guy you are. So I'm always happy when you get a Star Trek project that you're really into.
Oh yeah, I'm happy too.
Alrighty, next show. We got House of the Dragon. Came out 2021. We have a new season coming up in June, season 2.
Yeah.
Chatterbox, this was your pick, right?
Oh yes, yeah. It's only one season that's aired so far, but I had a good friend. He read Fire and Blood and all the Game of Thrones books. So I did reviews with him for House of the Dragon season 1. And I haven't read any of the books, so it was kind of like we were trying to do kind of both sides of it. And it was actually really fun, to learn, seeing, and like Fire and Blood, like it's so fascinating. Like this show is adapting like stuff that's literally like a few paragraphs in that Martin wrote, and it's like a whole episode in this show. So I think it's Ryan Condal, the creator of this, like it's such a good job of adapting, or this is what my friend says, right? That's read it, but it's such a great show. Like, and I think I was actually like kind of worried going in that they were just going to be like, oh, it's just a bunch of dragons flying around and they're going to like really go into like heavy visual effects and that stuff. But it's like, we don't even see that many dragons in this first season. It's actually like focused on the politics and to me, the best parts of Game of Thrones, right? When they focus on that. So I thought it was really great. Obviously Matt Smith, I think, is like amazing in the role. And he snubbed for the Emmys, which is insane. Like I thought he'd for sure be like kind of the Peter Dinklage, right, for the show. Really, really like this one and really hyped for season 2. It feels like we're going to get a little like payoff, right? Because this season was a lot of setting up things and it looks like, from the trailers, we were going to war. So
yeah,
for sure.
I've seen the trailers for the next season. It looks very exciting. I still haven't finished House of the Dragon. It's like I did this really weird thing because like leading up to it, I was like, I want to watch the show live. I want to be part of the experience because I missed the Game of Thrones hype. It was one of the biggest shows of all times. I heard the stories of people in bars all watching. Like it felt like such an experience. I wanted to do that, so I binged all of Game of Thrones in a couple of months. 4 or 5 months or so. Like I loved it, and I had a really good time with it. And then like House of the Dragon, I wanted to do, and I never finished it. I didn't never finish the final 3 episodes, but I really liked what I saw. Like I did feel like, like there's definitely a lot of like skepticism when you're doing another Game of Thrones show after everything. I didn't hate the final season of the Game of Thrones as much as most people. That's because I binged it probably, and I didn't have that like experience that everyone else did. But like I thought it was fine. It wasn't great, but it was whatever. But like going into another show, there's definitely going to be a lot of like skepticism. Every month it feels like they're announcing another Game of Thrones show, and it's like, okay, I wonder if that's ever going to get made.
Exactly.
But like
the Jon Snow one,
it's
like
a weird choice.
it still makes no sense to me why they would do that. But
I mean, I think like I kind of like the idea because it seems like that like their thing was like, well, we're going to like kind of just do Game of Thrones again, but like try and fix some of the stuff, like try to fix the issues in the past or whatever. Like it's actually good, guys. Like this is actually the real ending to Game of Thrones type of thing. Yeah. So I get that, but also like I don't know if I care too awful much about it in the future of Game of Thrones as a whole. But I'm excited for this to come out like June. I'm so excited for just June as a whole for TV because we got the Bear, we have this, we have the Boys, we have the Acolyte, right? Star Wars. Well. Yeah, so we got a lot of fun shows in the summer. I think it's gonna be a fun summer for this TV. So fun stuff. Connor, do you have any thoughts on this?
I really liked House of the Dragon. It just would have been outside my picks. But it's pretty close. I was kind of the same where I think for the later seasons of Game of Thrones, for me, there was a pretty noticeable decline in the writing, but I still think in terms of everything else, like everything that wasn't the writing, like the acting, the directing, the visual effects, the music, I think the scale of season 8 was still some of the biggest TV we had that year. Like even though the writing wasn't nearly as up to par as it used to be, it still was a hugely incredibly well made show just in every other department. And I think House of the Dragon really brought that here, where like a lot of the quality was kind of back. And I agree that the politics of Game of Thrones was the best part of it. Like those early seasons where like you've got everybody's sort of still in King's Landing a lot of the time, and there's a lot of the politics, and you've got the Hand of the King changing every other episode and like a lot of that sort of stuff. I thought that was always the most interesting part of the show and the stuff I wanted to really see more of. So it was really enjoyable to go into House of the Dragon and have a lot of that, because like the Targaryen war and the dragons and stuff like that, while it's cool, it's not what I what I primarily want to see. Like, I want to see the
Right.
backstory to all of it, and like the houses themselves and how they're sort of dealing with the changing world. And it's good that the House of the Dragon really sort of dealt into that. And I agree that Matt Smith is fantastic in it.
Yeah,
and just the entire cast was great. But yeah, I'm really excited to see where they go in season 2. I didn't actually watch the trailer yet, so I'm excited to see. So I might just hold off on the trailer and just kind of go in pretty fresh. I'm excited.
Yeah, it seems like they're building up pretty well. Like, it seems like if season 1 was just kind of like an intro to it all, building everything up, it seems like season 2 they're like lifting off the ground, and they're going to do some really cool stuff there.
Yeah. From what my friend tells me, it's going to be. Well, I don't even know that. Like, I don't think it's going to go like past season 3.
That's what I've heard.
Like it's probably just 3 seasons, but season 2 is going to be like a lot of. Well, and they've actually talked about adapting what I think a lot of people were going to put, in a season 3 is like I think it's Aegon's Conquest.
Yeah.
Right. And so now they're talking about doing just a separate spin-off for that.
I've heard that.
so that's interesting. So I'm not sure exactly what season 3 will actually be, but season 2 is supposed to be kind of like the war, or at least the start of it, right, between the two sides. So yeah, really looking forward to it. Yeah.
Same. Good stuff ahead. All right. I'll try my best to get through the rest of these pretty quickly because I know we're kind of running out of time here, but we got a couple more.
I got some.
Okay, cool. I just didn't want to keep you like too long if you had like work or something. Okay, cool. Next one is my pick, and I wanted to kind of I got Infinity Train. Now this came out, the final season aired in 2020. This is just one of those shows that I just really, I wouldn't say it's like one of the best shows I've ever seen or anything, but like I really wanted to give a chance to shout this show out. Now, this is a show that aired on Cartoon Network. I think it came out back in like 2017, and this is a anthology series where each season follows a different character, and the whole kind of general idea is that they get trapped in a train, and each car of the train is like a different universe. So one might be a universe filled with cats, the next one maybe like talking chainsaws or whatever. And the whole plot of the season is they have to like go through and learn they have to learn something about themselves, or they got to heal something. So the first season it's about like this girl, her parents just got separated, and she's really having a hard time with it, and she's not doing well. She's not doing well mentally, and it's her kind of like learning who she is and her importance in life. And that's kind of each season. There's 4 seasons, and I think those first 3 seasons, it being Cartoon Network and it being a kid's show, I think is some of the most like mature TV I've seen in quite a while. And like it's really easy like binge because like each episode is like 10 minutes long, and it's like 10 episodes. So it's it's a really short show, but I think what they were able to do in its time, what's like under 2 hours for the entire season, was really, really impressive. I love the voice cast. I love what they were able to do. And again, those first 3 seasons are incredible. Now the season that actually aired in 2020 was actually my least favorite season by a large amount, so I don't know if I should have put this one on this list, but I did just want to give. I hate the whole show's bad. Like if it was those first 3 seasons, it would be in like my perfect TV list. Like I think it's generally really perfect. But I also just wanted like an animated show, with all of these shows, because I was like, what's like a perfect like animated TV show that I feel like doesn't get enough love? I was like, Infinity Train. That's a great show. I will really want to shout that one out. I don't think. Have either of you seen it or no?
I have not.
No?
Have not heard of it, yeah.
How dare... No, just kidding. No, and I think it's one of those shows that was also part of, like, the Max takeover. Like, I think it was...
Yeah, I do remember hearing that. Yeah.
And, like, I mean, it was a thing where, like, they were gone. Like, you couldn't watch it anywhere. Like, it was, like, a tax write-off thing. Like, you couldn't find them at all. And it was, like, this almost perfect show is gone from existence, and people were it eventually came back, thankfully, but like that was a mess time. Like that was such a crazy time to be a fan of like animation and just like Warner Brothers stuff. It's crazy. I mean, but again, it's a show I would hope come back, because it's a thing where like you could do 1,000 seasons and it makes sense, because each season's a different cast and different trains, and it's just like very like imaginative with how they write their stories and the different trains and stuff like that. So good stuff. That's all I have on this one. So if you guys have nothing else to say, I can just.
No, I was just gonna say the only like the first time I heard about the show was because of all the Max stuff. Was when it just got like completely removed, and everybody was kind of up in arms about it. That's the only time I've ever really come across it.
Yeah, Yeah, it's really great stuff. Like if you guys ever have free time for like an hour, like it's like an hour a season. It's like extremely weirdly short. It's like a short film, but it's really good stuff.
Cool.
Alrighty, our next one, Connor, Agents of Shield, both of our favorite shows of all time. I was very happy when I saw you. I saw you put it on there. I was like, yes, I get to talk about it again. Let's go.
In my opinion, the most perfect comic book television show of all time.
Hell yeah!
I think, like it's just, I mean, season 7 is not in my top 3 seasons of the entire show. Like I think season 5, 4, and 2 are the best of the show, and then season 7 is the only one that came out in the 2020s. I think it came out. It started like late May 2020. But I think
you put this over She-Hulk, really?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Agents of Shield has got something there that She-Hulk.
Shocking. Sorry.
No, but no, I think like the season sort of dealing with different time periods every episode, and sort of like every episode being a different, like the amount of effort they put into showcasing the 1920s, the 1930s, the 1950s, just every other episode being this thing. It feels like Shield at its most, I guess, high budget and most cinematic, where they're really sort of trying things, because we dealt with seasons of 20 episodes in like the same hallways because they just did not have the budget. And now in this episode they're outside in every single episode. They're exploring all these crazy different time periods. It really feels like such an upgrade for the show, even if I maybe think like the writing doesn't sort of maybe get as good as, or get as peak as like seasons 5 and 4 does. But yeah, I think like Agents of Shield in general, just it went out kind of how I would have liked it to, where
perfect
a lot of the characters ended up sort of in the right place, and it's good thing Marvel left it open ended so that maybe we could see a revival or some sort another day. But yeah, no, I think it's fantastic.
I know it's a extremely hot take. I think the final season's still one of my favorite seasons, just as far as like I felt like, I don't know, like I felt like I just love the cast so much this season. Like I think Sosa kind of being there, and I think the time travel stuff, like I felt like it was such a fun, like, not soft I mean, I guess the final season are kind of like a soft reboot, but like I felt like we kind of entered this new era of Agents of Shield, and with this, I feel like the outside of Fitz not being around, obviously that sucks. But I think if you add Fitz into that that mix, and also you're like Enoch, like I think if they're all there, it's like the perfect cast. It's the perfect group of characters. I feel like by that point they just know what kind of show it is, and it's going with it. It's just having fun. It's taking swings. It's taking chances, and again, like, man, I loved Sosa so much. Like Sosa just felt like the perfect addition to the show, and I think how they were able to introduce Agent Carter stuff and Shield stuff, it makes it feel so. It just does it very well, in my opinion, and just I don't know, just so many, like the Groundhog Day one is still one of my favorite episodes of Agents of Shield. Like I think that's just like a perfect episode of the show, and the acting is just on point, and. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Was this canceled, or was it like? Did it end? This was like,
it ended,
right?
So they gave it a final 26 episode kind of thing to wrap it up. Yeah, because they've said that season 6 is pretty much season 7 part 1. Yeah. And then that, like, if this was sort of a normal season of the show, it would have been split up into 2 arcs the same way like season 5 was. But yeah, no, they kind of got an ending, like, because we first heard about this during the Captain Marvel like press tour. They were interviewing Clark Gregg for Captain Marvel, and he was like, yeah, season 7 next year will be our last season. And that was the first confirmation that we had a season 7, and the first confirmation that it was ending. So that was like really interesting. But yeah, so I'm just happy got a wrap up, because season 2, 3, 4, and 5 were all on the verge of cancellation. Like every single year, it was those articles coming out being like, which TV show was on the bubble this year? Which show is in most danger? And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was constantly the one that was like in the red. I think the only reason it got saved was because some of the people at Marvel like came to ABC and were like, look, please just renew it. We need a Marvel TV show on, because this was before sort of any of the Disney Plus stuff. The Netflix stuff was kind of coming out pretty sporadically, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was that one show they were like, please just keep it going so we can have some sort of representation on TV. Right. And I'm so happy they did that, because I think it's perfect. That criminally underwatched show, in my opinion.
Yeah, fully. And again, it's so insane kind of looking at like what's happened. Like they were under budget, the views weren't there, like all of these things going against. Is it canon? Is it not canon? We're still arguing that to this day, and yet it's still some of the best things Marvel has put out since. This is maybe a hot take. I think season 4 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is better than most of the MCU. Like, that is my hot take. I
completely agree.
I think it goes up there with like Daredevil and some of the best of the Marvel stuff. So it's so good. It feels like maybe we're on the like track to get it back in the MCU. Hopefully, maybe. Like, I feel like better chances now than we've had in a very, very, very long time. But yeah,
I think the way X-Men is like X-Men 97 is sort of running for the Marvel animated side. I think Daredevil Born Again is running for the Marvel TV side. Whereas if that does really well, they'll see no reason why they shouldn't bring back a lot of the other TV shows.
I think it'd be cool to like if Daredevil's the like representation of the grounded, then you can have like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Agents of S.W.O.R.D. or whatever, like the like representation of the cosmic, and then X-Men and stuff like that for like the rep of like the animation, and those are like your 3 main circles for like the your like Disney Plus stuff. I think would be really fun.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'd love that. Have you seen it? This at all? No.
I've heard I've heard great things like over the years that I was just like constantly hearing about the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just didn't watch it.
Sure.
Some fun stuff here. I get it though. It's a lot of seasons. Like it's
7 seasons.
Like, which is insane to think about with the current. Like you have Marvel, which is like 6 episodes a season, and that's it. It's like
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's like 22 episodes a season for like 5 seasons, and then they go to 13. Like it's insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a long show. Time. Yeah, it is. All right, but speaking of a shorter show, Heels.
Yes.
Which this was one of your picks, right?
Yeah. I really wanted to highlight this because I still can't believe season 1. To me, like that is, I don't know if like this is completely accurate, but what I looked into, the ratings for season 1 are like some of the lowest ratings I've ever seen for a TV show. Like we're talking, wow. I think one of the episodes was like 76,000 viewers. Like that's insane. Like
YouTube
even
numbers,
literally, I was gonna say like there's like YouTubers that get like Mr. Beast like crushes that with every one of his videos, but I don't know, like I just couldn't believe that. And so I watched it like at the very end of season 1. And I'm not really into wrestling at all. And so, I was like, oh, I'm not gonna watch the show, but then I did. And yeah, it's just like really great. I mean, I think obviously like for wrestling fans, I think they really like it. And like there's kind of like Easter eggs for wrestling fans because I think they use like some real wrestlers kind of make cameos and stuff in it. And so for them, it's kind of cool. But to me, I just like love the drama in it. I think that's really great. The acting, I think, is amazing. I think Stephen Amell, I know you guys like Arrow, right? Or I know Darren definitely does. And so to see him in this, like a bit of a different kind of performance, he's just amazing. Alexander Ludwig, I think he doesn't get enough credit. I think he's really great. Chris Bauer, who plays Wild Bill, man, is like he's just insane. He's been like, I think he was in The Wire. Like he's been in a bunch of really great shows over the years. But yeah, he's great in this. And then I think season 2, I think it's probably better than season 1 to me.
Oh wow,
I really like season 2. And then of course it got canceled like recently. Yeah. And like I said, I was even shocked that we got a season 2. And it took almost like, they had said they were done filming in like July of, was it 2022 or something? And it didn't come out until like a full like year or a year and a half later. So obviously Starz was like, whatever, we don't really care about this. Like, whatever. But we finally got it. So, and it was very good.
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say like, me and Connor were both big on Arrow. Like, those are 2 of our favorite shows. And like, it was very, because like he had got this job basically as soon as he was done with Arrow. Like I felt
I mean he pushed for, he's like the exec producer and all that because he's a huge wrestling fan. So he was like really pushing for like, I want to make a wrestling show. Like that's what I want to do.
He loves wrestling, and he was really happy to do this. And that, you know, like at that time, after some of these Arrowverse shows were getting canceled, and like I felt like he was one of the only ones that was still working. It's still working because this canceled, and now he's doing a new Suits show, like immediately
Suits on, yeah,
which is insane, especially after all the controversies with him this past year. It's like, oh my gosh, you're still getting lots of work, which is very crazy. But I've heard things about. I haven't seen it personally, but like I've heard good things. I've heard it's a fun show. Probably won't watch it now though. Now that it's it ended on a cliffhanger, right?
It did, yeah, pretty big one.
Yeah, that sucks. I'll probably not watch it now, unfortunately. But
just one thing about I went to a convention last year, and I did. Well, I don't know if you say like you met Stephen Amell. I mean, like I got a picture with him or whatever.
Oh, it's so cool.
It was really cool. And he's like massive, like jacked. Anyways, but there was, because he's brought up the controversy, and that was interesting because the strike was still going on during the convention, and there was a lot of stuff about, you know, should the actors even be at these conventions, right? Because it's like they're promoting him just being there is promoting heels, right? And like the show he's working on, even though, you know, when he was there, and I think he had like a panel as well, he didn't like, they weren't like allowed to say the title of the show. Zachary Levi was there too, and he was like,
"Oh yeah, I remember that."
Shazam 2 was like coming out, and or had just come out or something, and he was like, "The movie that should not be named," and that's how they were talking about it. But anyways, so it was, you know, I think some people were kind of hesitant to like, you know, oh, why is Stephen Amell here? Like, why are they doing this stuff? But yeah, it's what it is.
Yeah, that was a really crazy time, and like I wasn't sure if he would have worked again. Like
I was worried he wasn't. I was worried he was done after that.
Which is like, I understand his frustration. Again, I'm not an actor, so I wasn't in his shoes there. But it's like, come on, buddy, I wouldn't have done that just for your career's sake. That probably doesn't seem the smartest. But he's back. I guess it didn't affect him too much, so I guess he'll be good.
Heels is great.
Yeah, what did you think of season 2 versus season 1? Which one
I preferred season 2 over season 1.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
I think it did improve a lot of the elements. So like I liked season 1, but I thought season 2 definitely just kind of improved everything. Because like Arrow is my favorite show of all time, so I was watching this because of Stephen Amell. I was like, I'm gonna watch it because of him. Because even during Arrow's run, Stephen was constantly pushing for wrestling things. Like he got Cody Rhodes in Arrow season 5 for a while and stuff like that. So he was always kind of pushing for to do more wrestling style jobs. So I was like, I'm gonna watch this, support him because he likes that. Also, Alexander Ludwig after Vikings, I was really interested in seeing like what he'd do next. And ending it on a cliffhanger like that was so disappointing for the cancellation.
Yeah,
but it was. I liked it. And a part of me was like, the creators, like the writers, like, did you really think you were gonna get a season 3? Like, given the ratings and all that, so I'm like, maybe you should have just wrote like a good ending for the show. But
completely right.
We can't really blame them, but yeah, it's a bit disappointing. But what are you gonna do? They did talk about, though, or at least Stephen Amell was like really optimistic that like another network was gonna pick them up.
Yeah, I saw
that. That's kind of died down. I haven't seen them talk about it again, but
no, I think the show's dead. I think it just there wasn't much of a base there for like much support for the show, unfortunately.
Yeah, I didn't see anything. Like season 1, I heard some stuff, and that's why I watched it. But season 2, it just like came to went. It was sad.
Yeah, and it came out at such a bad time too, because that was peak strikes, like strikes that just started. And I get how frustrating that is as an actor, just to not be able to promote your work. But like
Steven even promoted it on his Instagram. Like I remember he made a post about season 2, and then he took it down because everybody was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, that was that was the funny thing, was like, I'm just taking a photo and it just happens to be behind me.
Behind him,
There's no correlation whatsoever. No, it's really funny. But yeah, I mean, it's because I saw nothing like hashtag save heel. Like I saw nothing of that. Like it was just not there, which sucks. But it is what it is. Sometimes it is what it is. I mean, you know, my next pick being another show that got canceled recently, which is Stargirl, which was the one I wasn't sure. Listen, like, I'm well aware that these CW DC shows are not usually the best. Those are some of my favorite shows ever. Typically, they're not very good. Throughout its entire run, I should say. Like, I think most of them, they start really good, or they end really. They have like I feel like each one usually has like one or two really, really good seasons, and then they fall off. I do think Stargirl is the exception to that. I think it's the one with 0 bad seasons. I think the 3 seasons it had are still some of my favorite comic book TV of all time, and it's the only of these DC shows I have in my S tier of shows. Because it's so weird, because it starts off really good, and then during that midpoint of the season, there's like an episode or two where I was like, I'm not sure if this is as good as I thought it was. Maybe this is not up, maybe it's dropped in quality a little bit. And then the back half happens. It was like, never mind, this was good the entire time. I just didn't get to see the full vision yet. And what I love about Stargirl is I do genuinely think it's one of the most like comic booky shows there is out there. Like it feels like it's a living, breathing comic book. Like it's a comic book come to life. Not like like the storylines that they're like adapting, but it just feels like something you'd be reading in a comic book and be like, oh my gosh, this character's teaming up with this character, they're fighting this group of it. Like it's so much fun from start to finish, and it's such like a breath of fresh air. And I think it came out at this perfect time. Like it came out post-crisis. I feel like at this time a lot of people were like dropping off of these Arrowverse shows. They weren't feeling it as much as they used to. It was like, all right, I don't know. And I think this came out and like everyone was like, this is what we want more of in the Arrowverse. Like this was such a breath of fresh air with that time. Connor, you're also a big fan, right, of the show?
See, like I definitely think in terms of quality, it just surpassed all of the CW shows. But I also kind of put that on the fact that season 1 was a DC Universe show, that it already got
right.
so much put into it that the CW shows never got put into them. And then a lot of that just carried over to season 2 because they had sets built, they had props built, they had things built that the CW shows would never have been able to afford getting built. So like there wasn't extra money being spent to keep those props. They just brought them over. Right. But I definitely think in terms of just the quality, it's such a fantastic show. It feels like a comic book come to life. It feels like really sort of honoring the era of the JSA and the 1950s style DC characters that a lot of DC properties haven't really ever touched on. I think choreography wise, you're not going to see better fights in a comic book property. I think like this and Daredevil are just like what are the greatest sort of fight scenes put to a comic book show.
I would argue just TV in general. Like not to say it's best thing on the TV, but like I think as far as like network television, not these big budget stuff, like network television, I think has some of the best on TV. Like I remember like Blind Wave was like watching it live, and like they were saying like this is better than some of the Game of Thrones things that they had in later seasons. Like they were really and like I think they did such a smart thing where like they would go like 3 to 4 episodes without any action, without any fight scenes, but they would save all the money and then they'd be like, okay, so here's one of the greatest fight scenes you've ever seen in anything. Like the grocery store fight scene was so cool, and the way they're able to do, oh man, and like it makes me very excited that it seems like a lot of the people on here are heading into some of these like DCU projects. Like I think the costume people are going over there. I think maybe the choreographing people as well. I'm not sure. Maybe that's a lie. I'm not sure. But like, I don't know. I think out of all the CW shows, I would say Stargirl was my favorite because Flash, I still have a special place in my heart. Superman, Man and Lois is also a special place in my heart. But like, I think Stargirl is the one I missed the most. And I think just because it ended in a place that was still great. Like, I think Flash didn't end at a very good place. Arrow was okay. Like, I thought the ending was
I love Arrow's ending.
I know you do. I didn't.
Arrow ended great.
Okay.
Peak show.
Arrow, like Supergirl didn't end the but I feel like that was the one where like it ended and I was just like, great. And also had a perfect ending. Like, I know that was main ending at the end, but like the JSA stuff in the future was like, that's perfect. That's a perfect way to end your show. So
that thing is like I respect the hell out of Stargirl because it did what Legends of Tomorrow didn't, and it actually like it did an ending. They saw the writing on the wall. They knew they weren't making it to season 4, so they filmed an ending, and they were like, let's give a wrap up as best we can to these characters. Whereas Legends of Tomorrow was like, yeah, we're not going to get cancelled. Don't worry, let's just do a cliffhanger, and then they got cancelled.
I would have loved if Legends could have like done just filmed a scene. Like it doesn't even have to be part of the ending. They just filmed a scene, and if it got canceled, be like, okay, here's the scene that we filmed just in case. Yeah. Because I get their whole thing was like, we're gonna do a cliffhanger and hopefully get the studio to give us another season. I knew that they knew that was their only chance, and I understand that. It sucks for us, but I understand as a creator, you're trying to get your show another season. Let's do that. But then just like film it on the side and be like, if this get canceled, here's this for the fans. This is like a final scene or whatever. But
for sure,
it's frustrating. But
no No comment on this one, unfortunately.
It's a pretty short show if you did want to get into it. I think it's like 13 episodes, 3 seasons.
Yeah, it's like 30 episodes in total. Like it's a really short, and probably why it works the best because it is such a short run. Like these Arrow shows usually go for 100 some episodes. It's like that's a lot. But this is a short 3 seasons.
So this started on that DC Universe thing that they had for
one of the few shows they got off the ground before they fell apart.
Yeah, so that was Titans and Swamp Thing. And
Swamp Thing, yeah.
And Doom Patrol was also really good. Like I really loved most of Doom Patrol as well. Titans, on the other hand, I won't give a comment on. But
hey, look, it's a show, all right. It's definitely
TV. It's a show that exists. It's out there. Another show that's out there, The Expanse. Connor, this was your pick.
Hell yeah. So season 5 and season 6 came out in 2021, 2022. I think season 5 might have started in 2020. But The Expanse is a weird show. I'm one of the few people who thinks like the sci-fi seasons of The Expanse, so the first 3 seasons that aired on Sci-Fi, are better than the Amazon seasons because it went to Amazon in season 4. But the show is still like one of the absolute best depictions of space and of sci-fi that I've ever seen. Like the way the ships move in this show is so fantastic. Like there's such a realistic, grounded feel to it. Like you have them sort of tied to their chairs and they're sort of shaking around like crazy, and the ship is spinning in a way that just feels real. Even if it's not real, it feels real. And I think the characters in it are fantastic. And season 5 and season 6 is I'm still a little bit weird about the season 6 ending because there are 3 more books and they're deciding not to adapt them. So they ended season 6 even though there's more story, but they're not continuing it. It's weird. But I think how they approached the seasons and how they dealt with the fact that they weren't continuing the story was really good. These characters are fantastic. Like Amos, the guy who's in that poster there, is one of the best characters ever. He was in Ahsoka, actually. He was that like stormtrooper with the sort of Centurion looking head in Ahsoka, I think. But like, yeah, it's just a phenomenal show. One of the best science fiction shows of all time. But like, I'd put it up there with Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek and Stargate and stuff like that. It's just something that was also sort of criminally underwatched. Like it is popular, but I think it never really got sort of the love that it deserved for how well made it is and how just well written it is as well. But yeah, love this show a lot.
Yeah, I knew about Sci-Fi, like I knew about the channel, but the big I don't know if you've heard the show Resident Alien.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've caught up until like halfway through season 3, or wherever they're at. Like a few episodes ago, I'm not caught up.
Okay, yeah. So I really like that show, and that was kind of my introduction to sci-fi. But I heard about this show, and it's kind of unfortunate because I think what you said, I've heard a lot of people say the Amazon seasons are better.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
To me, I think it's like partly because it's like more people like knew about the show and it was like more popular on Amazon, right?
For sure.
Yeah, I don't know. And sci-fi is such an interesting one. Like some of their shows, it's like, and Resident Alien, I'm kind of worried about that too because they reduced the episodes for season 3 and it kind of came out later. But they seem to do that. Like it's like the shows get good. Like they have really good shows and they end them. They just cancel them. Yeah. And then a show like Chucky, I don't know if you guys watch that, but
I haven't watched it yet, but it's on my list.
I've heard things.
I've heard good things about the first season, but some people said they really didn't like the second season. And Sci-Fi renewed that like right away. So I don't know. It just seems like a weird one.
Sci-Fi is always like just such a weird channel. Like for the reasons you say as well, I feel like there's almost to me with Sci-Fi, it feels like 90% of the shows they put out are some of the cheapest sort of whatever stuff you're going to see. But then every now and then they'll put out something that's so much better than anything else they make. And you're like, and then they'll cancel it. And you're like,
what? They cancel it. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. Did they had, was that World War Z? Was that on that channel too?
The Z Nation? World War Z was
that's
movie,
what it was,
wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes, that's what it was. And that one, I don't know about the quality, but that was a very popular show. Like a lot of people like that. And I think they canceled that as well. So, yeah.
Now I think about it, I don't think I've ever seen a sci-fi show like a show on that network. I'm trying to look. I was looking up.
13 Monkeys is them as well, or 12 Monkeys.
I haven't seen that. Yeah, I've heard a bunch of their shows, but like I don't think I've actually ever like seen anything they put out.
So did they cancel The Expanse as well?
Yeah. Cancel after season 3, but then it was really popular. They did do Krypton, yes. I forgot about that.
I haven't watched that, but that's the most that's probably the closest I've been to checking out a sci-fi show. But no, I mean, this is a show you've been trying to get me to watch for years, and I think I'm close. I think I'm closer than I have been in the actually I saw the first 2 episodes and I thought it was terrible.
No, I felt the same way though. Like I had to watch the first 4 episodes like 3 or 4 times before it finally clicked with me, and then I was like, oh, this is actually is great. They got like Thomas Jane playing the main guy, and he's pretty much the Punisher from the Punisher movies, but like just as a detective, and it's really interesting.
Right. No, I mean, I bet it's great. I just, from the ones I saw, I was like, I don't have motivation to watch more.
Sure, yeah.
I think I'm gonna put myself in a spot where like, okay, I'm just gonna watch a couple of weeks until I'm done, and then like literally forcing myself to get through it slowly. I think after I finish Fringe, I think is what I'm going to do, because I'm
watching Fringe.
I'm watching Fringe. Yeah, I'm in. I think
Nice.
what I would assume is probably the peak. I'm in season 4. Like I'm in the middle of season 4, and it's so good. Season 4 has been so good. I'm sad I'm kind of heading towards the end of it. But yeah, I've been doing 2 episodes of Fringe for the last year or so, and it's been great.
Nice. No.
Great stuff, yeah. All right, let's move on to we have final 2 shows here. And that is The Righteous Gemstones, which this was yours, right? I think this was this is yours.
Yeah, I think this is mine. Wow. What a show. So I think we've had 2 seasons, since 2020. Yeah, I mean, so I'm a huge fan of Eastbound and Down, and Vice Principals. Those are the 2, the Danny McBride, Jody Hill, and David Gordon Green. I think the 3 of them, they've basically directed and written all of the shows. I think this one might be the best though. It's so great, and to me, it's just so cool to have this show and for HBO to let them still make stuff. Because to me, there's no other show on right now that does the stuff that Danny McBride does. There's one sequence in this last season. Connor, have you seen the recent season?
I've seen most of season 1, and I still need to get back to it.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I won't spoil it or anything, but there's this one sequence where it's 2 guys fighting, and it's absolutely insane. You just won't see that in anything else on TV. But yeah, so it's also I will say though, obviously if you're not into Danny McBride and his style of comedy, from his movies and that, I don't think you're gonna like this that much. Sure, it's very. He's committed. It's only this comedy. It's very raunchy and dark, and it's just kind of stupid at times, but it's I think the writing though, for how the level of comedy, I think the writing of these seasons is always really great. They really kind of flesh out, because each of these Gemstone seasons is almost self-contained. So you could really jump in at season 2 or season 3 and it would still make sense. So I really like that they do that. And I think it's just from episode 1 to the finale, they have it all planned out really well. And what a great cast here. You have Adam Devine, who's, was in Workaholics and that show, and he's great. And Edie Patterson, oh my gosh, she's insane in the show, because she was in Vice Principals, the show before this, and that was, I think, one of her her first big shows that she was in. Right. And she is insane in there, more insane than Danny McBride. And if you've seen some of his movies, that's a pretty big thing to say. But anyways,
no, I really want to get back to this at some point. It's just that it's constantly one of the main shows every year, that when a new season comes out, for the past 2 seasons anyway, every time the new season comes out, everybody's talking about how great it is, and at the end of the year, it's always right there as one of the best shows that came out that year. I'm God, I gotta catch up. Yeah,
I think season 1 is still the best though. I think it's amazing. Just the storyline of it is really good, and that's the thing too with these shows is it is a comedy at first, but there are so many, especially in Vice Principals too, just the most absurd stuff happens.
Yeah.
It's actually, if you like Barry, I don't know if we're going to talk about that next,
I love Barry.
It's similar in that way, where it's you're watching Barry and certain things, certain characters get introduced. You're oh, this is going to be a big character. And then like 5 minutes, he's just like, it's his head shot off or something. It's like stuff like that in the show where it's just like, that's insane, but it's hilarious.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have never heard of the show. This is the first time hearing of it, which I don't know. It seems like a big show. And I've never heard of it. That's crazy.
One of HBO's main ones at the moment, I'd say.
Is it? Okay. HBO, man, I just need to go down a rabbit hole. There's so many good ones that I just have missed out on, and I hate myself for it. But yeah. Is this like a gospel show? Like it looks like they're at church. Is that what's going on?
It's kind of like, I think Danny McBride himself is like, he's like fairly religious, but I think he like wrote the show as like this mocking of mega churches. So it's like not necessarily, it's not necessarily like critiquing religion, more so just like the guys who just like profit off of it and are millionaires who don't really, they just kind of
really. That sounds really
take
funny.
advantage of people.
I might have to put that on my list. That sounds really funny.
It's a good one.
All right, and last but not least, we have Barry.
Yeah.
This is, I think we are all pretty big fans of Barry, man. I love Barry. Barry's one of my all-time favorite shows. Connor, you introduced me to this a couple years ago, and like I've been obsessed ever since. I binged up first 2 seasons, and then I had to people waited years for season 3. And
season 1 and 2 came out like 1 year after the next, and then there was a 4-year gap between 2 and 3.
I'm so glad I waited. Like I only waited like 6 months, and like even then I was like, I need the next season. Oh my gosh. Connor, if you want to get us started just on your thoughts on Barry.
No, I love Barry. I think it's honestly similar to Ted Lasso to me, where like the comedy, it's really, really, really funny show, and I love like the more absurd sort of parts of it. But I also just love how real and serious it can get on the flip of a coin. Like the very first episode is pretty sort of funny, wacky, whatever, like he's being an actor now, but then the very end of the episode is him walking towards Noho Hank's car, and he's like, come on guys, what are you doing? And as soon as they don't drive off, he just takes out the gun and like shoots it in such a like a what feels like a way that it feels more real than even some action films make scenes like that feel. Like it's so intense and serious. And I think that the show continues that a lot. Like later on in season 1, when the more crazy guy joins up, and I forget his name, but the guy who's constantly ready to kill or get in sort of like fight situations. And so they're driving down the airstrip towards this car that they're gonna ambush, and then they all just get killed like straight away. Like it's just good. It's the show does such a good job at kind of taking these situations and kind of sprinkling comedy in, but then keeping them really, really, really intense when they need to be. Like I think season 3 is my favorite season, and that's because sometimes so incredibly like raw in terms of how Bill Hader is portraying the character. Like I just it's a fantastic show.
I don't know. I think the show just kind of took me by shock because I didn't quite know what it was about. I didn't know it was gonna be it was just your pitch of like, well, it's this hitman that wants to be like an actor, and I was like,
so interesting.
What a pitch for a show! Oh my gosh, that sounds so much fun, and I 100% agree. I think it's the way it balances its tones are so fascinating because like it is such a dark show, but the way it handles its comedy is out of this world, and Bill Hader is just that guy, man. And the way he's directed both season 3 and 4, I want him to get in the movies. I really hope he starts doing his own movies, his own show. Like he's so talented. The way Barry is just like, he's such an interesting character as well, because I don't know if there's ever quite a character quite like Barry. Like he's such a goofy fella, but he's also such a deranged man. And I would agree. I think season 3 is like one of my favorite seasons of TV ever. I think it's comedy. It's at the top of its game, and also just like the way it balances that darkness. And man, the scene in season 3 where like Fuchs is getting chased by all of the rabid dogs, and he's running down the highway. It's so funny, and I love the barista bit in season 3 as well. Like that is funny. I don't know. It's just, and like NoHo Hank is probably again one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. Like it's great. A star. I'm so excited he's part of the new Superman cat. Like he's gonna kill it over there.
Metamorpho.
I don't know. I just love the show. I really do.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite comedies for sure. Like if not maybe the top. I don't watch a lot of sitcoms though, but yeah, it's it's just great. I think season 1 it won like a bunch of Emmys when I was watching it, and I'm like, oh, like I had no idea about it. So I think I watched season 2 when it came out. And there's still that one episode in season 2. It's like Ronnie Lily, I think it's called. Yeah. That's still like to me is one of the best episodes of like TV I've ever seen, of like just nonstop, just dying laughing like throughout the whole thing. And it's just so like it's like it's so absurd, so ridiculous, but it's just like it's like the best parts of the show, like in just that one episode of like and it's pretty much like full comedy. There's not much, like you guys are saying, like the more serious stuff in it, but that was just insane. So then after that episode, I was like, okay, I'm into this. And then like you guys said, it was like, I think it was like 3 years or something like that between season 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And to me, I think this show is going to be interesting. I haven't done it yet, but I think it's going to be interesting to rewatch.
Yeah. I haven't rewatched either yet.
To me, like season 3 and 4 almost are like a different show.
Fully. Yeah.
Right. Like it's like they really reinvented the show into something a little different. And I really liked, I like both. Like I liked season 1 and 2. It's like a little bit more of the comedic stuff and the absurd. And then season 3 and 4 is a little bit more serious.
Oh, really? Okay.
To me, I think the finale for season 4, I think that's like one of the best series finales ever. That is just so good. Like the shootout sequence at the beginning of the episode is like one of the best. And then the whole ending, something as well that the show did so well is like the comments on like Hollywood. And, right. And so the ending with the movie, right? Like the based on a true story thing. I think that was just like, it's hilarious, but it's also like so true that like all these movies, the based on true story, they like twist these facts so much, and it's like not even the real story anymore. So for Bill Hader to like write that and comment on that, I think that's really cool.
For sure.
I really like, I don't know that season 3 is my favorite. I really like season 4. What did you guys think of I saw some people online though that were like borderline hating.
No, I saw that too. It was crazy to me. People like did not like that season.
It feels like it like definitely does feel like a different season. Like I think going from season 3 to 4, like there's a different tone. I think it goes down on the comedy, and I think for that reason it is just my favorite, just because I think the comedy is something I love so much. But it's great TV. Like the entire time I was like, why aren't I liking this as much as the first one? Because this is still some of the greatest TV on television right now, like by a large margin. What is it about it? But I think it just like changes sometimes hard. Like it's hard to like accept when things are a little bit different, when you change course a little bit. But I think you needed that tone for this final season to kind of wrap everything up the way you did. I think it was needed. But I still loved it. I thought it was amazing. Yeah.
I think you can even like see like that change in tone between the posters. Like the poster for season 1 there, like looks colorful, like it's really kind of showcasing sort of like you got the curtains for sort of showcasing his acting, his theater stuff, but he's got the gun as well. Even like his face is sort of more of a what's going on sort of face. Whereas then if you look at the season 3 poster, it's this really kind of gray, washed out one where he's got like kind of unclean hair, like the facial hair. He's sort of he looks all ragged. He's kind of leaning beside a dead tree. Like it's you just those 2 posters alone look like 2 completely different shows.
Yeah, that's true. I and the cast, you guys mentioned some of the cast, but great. So good, right? Like Stephen Root as well as Fuchs. And who like there's so many. Henry Winkler, of course, we didn't mention him.
Great, good.
So good. So and
each
I think
character
this was big for Henry Winkler because I like he was kind of the Fonz way back in the day, and this was big, but
for sure.
No, I love each character feels so colorful. Like no character feels like another character, and no character in here feels like a character you've ever seen before. Like it all feels, it pops, it feels fresh, it's funny. Like it's up there when I say like one of the best shows I've ever seen as well. Like. Again, I think if it wasn't for that final season, again, it's not a bad final season at all. I just liked it like slightly less than the other 3, but like it's up there. It's it's really up there as one of the most like invented shows I've ever seen. I'm glad it ended at season 4 as well. Like I feel like it's a show that could have got burned out really fast.
Yeah, I agree.
And like I think they did a very good job at making each season feel different, feel new. So like you're never like, all right, this is getting old. Like it always feels fresh. And I feel like if you went even further, it could have got there. We're like, all right, I'm done. You know. So it ends at season 4. There's no spinoffs. There's no movies. It's just like it's there. Now we're moving on, which I think is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. Well, crazy stuff. Is there anything else that like you guys would like to comment on? Is there any shows that we didn't mention here that like you would like to give a shout out to?
And there's a load that like just from the last few years that like so
you put a list that goes
Masters of the Air. I love Masters of the Air. In terms of other miniseries, like The Third Day was really good. That Sky HBO show from a few years ago set on the island. There was The North Waters is another one that really reminded me of The Terror.
Yes,
that was really good. Yeah. I really liked the HBO Perry Mason show. I was kind of like really disappointed that got cancelled.
Yep.
I think that's like all I'm thinking of at the moment. But yeah, just a lot of good shows from the last few years. Oh, Andor as well. Andor's
good. Yeah, I mean
the North Water. Yeah, it was a great show. Colin Farrell, like
he's so good in it.
That's the most like insane thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then I just had a couple. So the Yellow Jackets was one.
Yellow Jackets is great. Yeah,
I need to watch that, man.
I think season 1 was better than season 2 probably, but some of the stuff in that show I think is like unmatched. Like there's just nothing else quite like that. Like with the tone and everything they go for, it's like some of these episodes it's just like shocking. Like what happens. So Yellow Jackets, and then I like Resident Alien, mentioned that one. That was in the past few years. What else? Dark Winds. Have you guys heard of Dark Winds?
Yes, I actually really like Dark Winds. It kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah. I really like that one. And then Reservation Dogs. That was the other one.
Reservation Dogs was great as well. Yeah,
I've heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
the only one I kind of wanted to put on my list, but I decided not to because didn't really like the last 2 seasons so much. What was your Sex Education, which I loved the first 2 seasons. Like those first seasons, I was like, this is some of the greatest TV I've seen in a while. I loved it. And I thought season 3 was still pretty good. I thought it was solid, and I kind of thought season 4 jumped off the deep end a little bit. Like I think they just kind of like parachuted off a building at that point. And
I didn't hate it, but it was definitely weird.
It was easily the worst season. Like it felt like they were trying to do a spinoff and the final season at once, and they couldn't do both, and they did both horribly. And I felt like Otis, your main character, I felt like I was like, oh, this guy sucks now. Like I hate this guy so much. And again, like they lost like half of their cast, and they go to college this season, and it's just like they're retreading the same waters, and it was like I can't in good conscience include this as some of the best of the last couple of years. But I do love those first 2 so much. Like it's still in my favorite shows list. I know you mentioned Loki as well, Connor.
Loki I really liked.
Loki is like such a like you don't think about it at first, but like that's really good. I mean, Cobra Kai is one that I really enjoy. I don't know if I can include it in like the best of the best, but it's one of the funnest shows on TV by a lot. Like I love. There's not a season of that I dislike. So yeah, there's a lot of great TV, a lot coming. Like I think this is going to be a very big year for like TV, especially over these next couple weeks, next couple months through the summer and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I want to give a big shout out to a Chatterbox here. Thank you so much for popping in here and talking with us for almost 3 hours. I very much appreciate it. There's just so much to talk about.
There's so much TV.
TV. That's fine. Yeah, thank you for having me. And I think we should really talk about the 100 together, maybe on my channel.
We need to do it. That'd be really fun. But where can people find you?
So it's just Chatterbox Reviews is the YouTube. They do like ads now, right, on YouTube. So I think it's like Chatterbox _reviews or whatever. But yeah, I do mainly TV reviews. I haven't been as active as I'd like to be recently. Not as active as you guys. It's impressive. But yeah, no, I just do mainly TV reviews, and I did look at some of the Best Picture nominees from the Oscars this year too. So sometimes do movie reviews, but yeah, cool.
Sure. Yeah. And again, I just thank you for everyone that was watching today. We had a lot of people in the chat. everyone who stopped in and was chatting with us.
Who saw them? I unblocked them on Twitter.
I didn't mean to click that one. We can look at that later.
I don't even know who that is.
You got enemies.
All right. I'll
get him.
I don't know who they are. I'll unblock them.
That's hilarious.
But thank you guys so much. We'll be back. We'll be back next Thursday with another one of these. Actually, I don't even know what we'll be back next week, but we'll be back with something. Bye bye. See you later.